Chapter 21. Su Shun Gun 1. Chapter 21. Su Shun Gun 1. As Su Jingwen was driving the car, she thought, why did Ning Qingxue come? I am very familiar with her. Usually, someone like Ning Qingxue wouldn't come to a birthday party when she wasn't invited. Oh no! Su Jingwen suddenly remembered something important. Yimo is also coming tonight. What would happen if they see each other? Jingwen, what's wrong? Your mind doesn't seem to be here. Li Mumei saw that Su Jingwen appeared to be a bit distracted and hurriedly asked, Oh, nothing really. I suddenly remembered something, but it's fine now. Oh right, Mumei. You didn't tell me that Qingxue was coming. Qingxue, have you taken over your father's business by now? I heard some people saying that you were already at Ning Family Medical Materials. Su Jingwen tried to find some conversation in order to divert from her feelings of surprise. However, Li Mumei said, Actually, Sister Qingxue took over the business in Beijing ages ago, and I have always been there to help Sister Qingxue manage the business. It's just that some things happened and Sister Qingxue has now temporarily left Ning Family Medical Materials. Su Jingwen didn't ask what it was. It was probably internal conflict, and it was better not to ask about these things. Seeing there was trouble knitted between Ning Qingxue's eyebrows, she probably came to relieve herself of the unhappy things. Should she give Yimo a call to tell him not to come tonight, so that Ning Qingxue's doesn't feel worse? Thinking about it, Su Jingwen suddenly realized something important. Yimo didn't have a phone at all, he wasn't at school right now either, and she didn't even know where he lived, so she couldn't possibly contact him. By the looks of things, it was set in stone that Yimo and Ning Qingxue were going to meet. Sister Jingwen, I heard from Mumei that your mother wasn't very well. Is she better now? Of course, Ning Qingxue could tell Su Jingwen was a bit distracted, so she took the initiative to ask first. Su Jingwen had returned to being herself and decided to worry about Yimo later. It wasn't something that she could control now anyway. Hearing Ning Qingxue ask, she smiled happily. My mother is all well. Didn't Mumei tell you? Ning Qingxue felt a bit awkward. She didn't ask Li Mumei about Su Jingwen's mother's condition before coming. However, Su Jingwen didn't seem to mind and continued. I met a master purely by chance. You guys don't know about it. But that master's charm. Su Jingwen admired Yimo the most now. When Ning Qingxue asked, she made it sound like that master who sold her the charms was indisputable and unrivaled in the whole universe. She even recounted the specific details of buying and using the charms. Ning Qingxue and Li Mumei had their jaws open in shock after hearing this. They all stared stiffly at Su Jingwen. It was very rare to see someone like Su Jingwen being so superstitious, especially after receiving such a high education. To them, the person who sold Su Jingwen the charms definitely had an eloquent mouth. Jingwen, it's good that your mother is well. There is no need to go into such elaborate detail about how she recovered. Seeing how Su Jingwen was so superstitious, Li Mumei could only hint at her. I know you guys don't believe me, and I won't force you to. I have a fireball charm on me. If I didn't treasure it so much, I would use it and show you guys. However, if I did, I wouldn't be able to buy another one even with all the money in the world since I can't find that master anymore, Su Jingwen said helplessly. Okay, we believe you, Su Shingun. Under great reluctance, Li Mumei could only surrender. Even Ning Qingxue, who had a constant frown in her eyebrows, wanted to laugh. Su Jingwen was older than both of them, but her words were so unrealistic. It just could not be matched with her astute reputation. Seeing such a beautiful lady talk about a master who used shady charms really didn't match. If her own situation weren't so dire, she would have probably laughed seeing Su Jingwen put on such a Shingun show. Yimo made the bracelet and just put it straight in his pocket since he couldn't find a proper packaging to make it look better. He started recovering his chi immediately as he spent quite some effort into making this bracelet. If it weren't so difficult to sell them, he would probably make a few to sell. Since coming to this world, it was the first time Yimo took the taxi. He didn't want to run to you on private place, and neither did he know the way. Yimo's taxi stopped outside. The guard at the door saw Yimo take the taxi over and was surprised as he didn't look like someone wealthy. Although he was wearing neat and clean clothes, his hair wasn't groomed and was unkempt. Moreover, he was wearing a normal pair of Vans. These shoes couldn't be worth more than $30 to $40, So he immediately stopped. Yemo, sir, this is a private place. It isn't open to public. Before the guard finished his words, Yemo took out the invitation and handed it to the guard as he didn't care. With this appearance, it was normal for the guard to keep a close eye on him. The guard looked through the invitation a few times, and after confirming, he returned it to Yemo with surprise. Apologies, please go in. Just when Yemo went into the yard, a red Porsche pulled into the yard. In contrast with his entrance, this time it was as though the guard was just purely for display. The red Porsche dashed past Yemo, before slowly reversing back to where he stood. The driver was evidently quite arrogant. This was a big yard, not a high-speed freeway. One glance could tell that this was a very cocky person. Just as Yemo thought this, a girl jumped off the car. Clad in a red top and tight jeans, her womanly features were clearly outlined and an air of superior arrogance and glamour was evident. Sume, Yemo wasn't surprised to see her here. She was Su Jingwen's cousin after all, and it was normal for her to come to Su Jingwen's birthday party. However, although this woman was arrogant at school, she still seemed reserved. However, he didn't think that outside of school, she didn't bother to hide it at all. Yemo, stop. What are you doing here? Sume was rejected without reason last time and lost several $100s to Yemo, which made her feel very uncomfortable. Yemo stared at Sume in a feigned bafflement. I came here because I was invited. Is this place yours? Do I need to report to you before I come? At this moment, another girl jumped off the car. She dressed similar to Sume, but what made her more eye-catching was that her hair was dyed yellow. What's wrong, Mei? Who is this guy? This girl asked Sume and scanned Yemo with a haughty side glance. Sume sneered, and before she could talk, a military-plated Audi parked at the door but didn't come in. Instead, a 20-or-so-year-old youth got off. He also saw Yemo and walked over. Mei, long time no see. What's wrong? You don't seem to be happy. This youth had a smile and greeted her from a far distance. Sume saw this boy coming over, and her face immediately turned into a smile. Brother Wang Shu, you didn't even come to see me, yet you say long time no see? 1. Shingun. A person who pretends to be spiritually connected to a higher being and spreads false religious content to gain respect and social status. Chapter 22. If life was just like first meeting. Chapter 22. If life was just like first meeting, I came now, didn't I? Jia is here too. This youth had a calm tone and didn't have that impetuous temperament youth usually had. I thought Brother Su didn't recognize me. The yellow-haired girl pretended to be angry. Yemo saw them and thought that, although this man looked very gentlemanly, there was a sense of ferociousness in his temperament, even a faint sense of a killer's chi. Ordinary people would be unable to discern this killer's chi, but Yemo killed many people and monsters in his past life. He could tell with one glance that this youth definitely killed before, and he killed blatantly. He should be even proud of doing it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have this type of killer's chi. However, Yemo didn't have any business here. So just as he turned to leave, this youth turned his head and extended his hand saying, I'm Wang Su, you are? Yemo saw this youth extend his hand with a face full of mockery and immediately knew what he was trying to do. He extended his right hand slowly and casually said, Yemo. Seeing Yemo and Wang Shu shake hands together, the happiest person was Sume because she knew Wang Su had a quirky habit. Whenever he met a man for the first time, he would test their strength through a handshake. Once, her classmate shook hands with Wang Su and screamed in agony. Afterward, that guy didn't have the face to come after her again. Now, Yemo and Wang Su were shaking hands. What would the result be? Sume was even looking forward to hearing Yemo scream. Crack! Just a few sounds resounded. Wang Su felt he crushed Yemo's hands and even heard the sound of bones breaking. He didn't even know when Yemo took his hands away. He was shocked and regretted his actions. He thought that he used too much power and couldn't control it. He actually broke someone's hand. Sume and that yellow-haired girl called Jia were also shocked. They didn't think Wang Su was cruel enough to actually break Yemo's hands. The uncomfortable sound of bones cracking gave them goosebumps. Ah, Wang Su brother. Why did you break his hand? He was invited by Sister Jingwen. Where's Yemo? When Sume said this, she just realized Emo had disappeared. Wang Su also knew things had grown serious. He didn't think Emo was so fragile. He just shook his hand and didn't even use his full power. Yet Emo's hands broke. What was this? Hearing Sume's exclaim, only then did he see that Emo had disappeared, but none of them actually saw when Emo left. He's just a deprecated student. Give him some money and tell him to go to the hospital himself. What a useless thing, the girl called Jiajia said immediately. This valiant youth smiled bitterly. Now Sister Jingwen is going to tell me off. He definitely went in. I'll go and check up on him. Sigh. I didn't think his hand was so frail. Emo really didn't want to waste his time talking to these people who had nothing better to do. He came for Su Jingwen's birthday party, and having a conflict with the people here would only give Su Jingwen a hard time. However, he was also very satisfied with his bone retraction technique. Although his cultivation didn't progress much and was still only in the first stage of Qi gathering, his mortal martial arts improved a lot. Emo didn't know what degree the strongest person in this world was, but since he couldn't cultivate normally, he might as well practice mortal martial arts to make himself stronger and safer. However, he knew that even if his martial arts were trained to the absolute limit, there were still all sorts of weapons from which he would not be safe. While the trio of Sume, Wang Su, and the other girl was still discussing Emo's injuries, Emo had already entered the building. There was still a waiter at the entrance to the door. He glanced at Emo's invitation and let him inside. There was already a lot of people. Su Jingwen made the event huge. It was probably to celebrate her mother's recovery, as well while meeting up with friends she hadn't been with for a long time. Emo, thanks for coming to my birthday. Come, sit over here. Su Jingwen saw Emo as soon as he came in and hurried to take Emo to a table. Of course, I said I would be coming, didn't I? Emo smiled and was ready to take out his present when he heard someone say, "Ah, Jingwen, who is this handsome man? Is he your boyfriend?" But when he saw Emo's normal vans and Emo's apparels, he stopped his latter half of the sentence and stuttered to say, his dressing is really unique. Su Jingwen was afraid that Emo would feel bad and hurried to say, "He is my friend, Emo." Su Jingwen then realized that Emo was staring straight behind her back and didn't seem to hear what she said. She hurried to turn around. It was Ning Qingxue and Li Mumei walking over. Su Jingwen groaned to herself and thought, how could they have met so early? She didn't have the chance to explain things clearly to Emo yet. Emo looked as Ning Qingxue made her way over. This woman wore a faint yellow petticoat which struck him in his heart. Her silky black hair fell casually on her shoulders, rendering a sense of soft beauty, and her almond-shaped face didn't even have the slightest trace of makeup. She wore a deer-shaped hairpin in her hair, and a few strands of hair fell casually at the corner of her eye. Despite her sheer beauty, her eyes held an indescribable glimpse of worry and loss, and, when she walked over, it was as if a goddess was walking on the cloud. He was wondering why those searing eyes were so familiar to him. Those eyes filled with worry and loss. Could it be Luoying? Yes, her eyes looked too similar to his master Luoying. Emo exhaled a long breath and came back to his senses. He knew this girl wasn't his master Luoying, but yet her eyes drew him in, just like Luoying's eyes. Emo's complexion returned to the calm he normally had. He didn't know Ning Qingxue. Meanwhile, Ning Qingxue had noticed this young man's looking at her. Although he had, like many other bachelors, lost himself in her appearance, he was different from other people. He carefully examined her, but returned to his original calm. He wasn't like other people, removing their eyes from her with great difficulty and still taking peeks at her. Qingxue Mumei, you guys came. Let me introduce. Su Jingwen wanted to introduce them to each other, but Li Mumei walked up to Su Jingwen and whispered, don't introduce us here because Qingxue has never met Emo before. Su Jingwen immediately reacted. If Ning Qingxue didn't know Emo, then it really wasn't suitable to introduce them here. Sister Jingwen, something happened. Wang Su accidentally crushed Emo's hands, and we don't know where Emo is. Sume rushed in and said worriedly. But when she just said the first half of her sentence, she realized something was wrong since quite a few people were looking at her in astonishment. Just when she didn't understand what was happening, she saw Emo. Chapter 23. Ning Qingshue's First Impression. Chapter 23. Ning Qingshue's First Impression. Your hand? Su Jingwen looked at Yimo, who appeared to be perfectly fine, and pointed to his hand in shock. Yimo saw Su Mei and frowned. Jingwen, I'm going to rest for a while. After having said these few words, he just walked to the side and switched table. Yimo? Ning Qingxue looked weirdly at Li Mumei, thinking who this Yimo was. Li Mumei smiled bitterly as she pulled Ning Qingxue to the side and said, he is actually the Yimo you were engaged to. It's just that he seems a bit different than before. Not only did his looks changed, but even his temperament is completely different than before. I don't know what happened to him, but I haven't seen him for a long time. It's just that I don't know why Jingwen would invite him over. He is Yimo? Ning Qingxue subconsciously looked at Yimo again. Yimo's words and mannerism didn't seem cocky nor humble. Although he wore simple clothes, his mannerism was very natural and free-flowing. He didn't seem awkward at all, and didn't have the temperament of spoilt rich kids. He even had a faint sense of manly charisma that she felt from a distance. How could someone like him be impotent? Ning Qingxue was beginning to hesitate, but then she laughed at herself. If Yimo really was this person, then she didn't even know if he would agree to her plans. Qingxue, I feel that he has changed a lot. I'll try to get some information from him first. You can sit down. When Li Mumei saw Yimo, she suddenly felt hesitant towards her plan. The Yimo in front of her eyes didn't seem similar to the useless person according to what people were saying. If they had to be picky, then it was that his hair was a bit messy and wasn't shaped by a professional hairdresser. Ning Qingxue grabbed Li Mumei's hand. Mumei, I should be the one to do these type of things. Yimo saw that the people here were all wealthy, each wearing glamorous clothes. Comparatively, he was the most poorly dressed, but he wasn't ashamed. Instead, he was extremely calm. When someone was at a different altitude in life, their mindset was completely different, and they remained unaffected by wealth and glamour. Even if Yimo had those glamorous clothes, he would still live his life according to his style. His interests weren't on these things, but if it were, he was confident that he would become a wealthy man everyone admired. And then what? Life was short anyway, barely a few decades. You don't bring anything when you are born, and you won't bring anything with you when you die. His only goal used to be achieving eternal life. Although cultivation had become slow, his intent had not changed. However, now he had an extra concern for his master Luoying. Her feelings for him were undeniable, and his for hers too. As for other things, they were all just like passing clouds to him. Yimo. Ning Qingxue came beside Yimo's table and called out. Her slightly shaky tone betrayed mixed feelings. You can sit. Yimo smiled faintly. Ning Qingxue suddenly had a feeling of old familiarity, even though she knew it was her first time seeing Yimo. Thanks. Ning Qingxue sat down and suddenly felt a feeling of easiness, or a type of serenity. Yimo was like a calm lake, making her feel safe at heart. Your eyebrows are knitted so tightly, and your eyes look fatigued. Is there something troubling your heart? If I can help you, I'm willing to. Yimo obviously knew that a girl like Ning Qingxue wouldn't come and talk to a man she broke a marriage pact with for no reason. Since she came, she must have had something on her mind, so he might as well bring it up first. And although her conversation with Li Mumei was quiet, Yimo still heard it. He just couldn't have imagined that his fiancée was such a beautiful woman, almost as pretty as Luoying. He didn't have a negative impression of Ning Qingxue, or rather, he didn't feel anything towards her. But when he saw Ning Qingxue's troubled eyes, he was reminded of Luoying. Ning Qingxue looked at Yimo in surprise. She was astonished at Yimo's meticulous insights and his clear thinking. This is the useless, good-for-nothing kid that his family would abandon? Ning Qingxue thought about it for some time, but found it hard to articulate. She just sighed and thought, if only Li Mumei came to say it. Yimo sat opposite her and didn't feel the slightest pressure, but instead gave her a sense of serenity and peace. Ning Qingxue finally made up her mind and said, It's because of my marriage, however. This time the indifferent Yimo frowned, and there was finally a ripple in his heart. It was his first time interrupting Ning Qingxue's words. Your Ning family has already broken our marriage pact, and now, I'm not a member of the Beijing Yi family anymore. Yimo didn't finish his sentence, but his meaning was clear. It meant that he could help with anything but issues concerning marriage. It was her family that first broke off the marriage, and coming crawling back to him now was crossing the line. Although he had a good impression of Ning Qingxue, it didn't mean that Ning Qingxue could be exempted on this matter. I'm sorry. Ning Qingxue suddenly felt helpless. Yi Imo smiled faintly. You don't need to be sorry. I'm a good-for-nothing person kicked out by the Yi family. I'm not a suitable match for your Ning family anyway, and breaking the marriage pact holds certain freedom for me. I don't mean to reproach you for that. I just don't want to talk about it. Ning Qingxue suddenly felt uneasy in her heart. If she had heard these words before meeting Yi Imo, then she would pretend otherwise. But after seeing Yi Imo, she felt that her contemptuous views towards Yi Imo and her subconscious feeling that Yi Imo was not a match for her were laughable. The current Yi Imo appeared to have nothing but his plain and confident temperament and his open-minded outlook. It was a far cry from the Yi Imo in her memory. It was as though he wasn't the same Yi Imo that owned nothing, but a Yi Imo who had a condescending look on the world and stood at the peak of the clouds. This feeling made Ning Qingxue uneasy. Yi Imo sighed. He knew that Ning Qingxue had her troubles, but since it wasn't something he could solve, then there was nothing he could do. Thinking about that, he said, since Ning Qingxue seemed to know what Yi Imo wanted to see. She bit her lips and interrupted Yi Imo's words. Tonight, I want to go too. She suddenly felt a satisfying pleasure for interrupting Yi Imo's words. It was as though the discomfort she felt when Yi Imo interrupted her had dissipated. But Ning Qingxue didn't think that her words were also interrupted. Qingxue, it really is you? I didn't think I would see you during Jingwen's birthday party. This is such a surprise. As soon as these words were said, a youth carrying half a glass of red wine had appeared beside Yi Imo's table. Ning Qingxue frowned and didn't speak. This youth was decent-looking, but his eyes were very fidgety. He saw Yi Imo on his first glance, but ignored him. This was because Yi Imo didn't even seem like a guest or even a waiter. Move over. I haven't seen Qingxue for a long time. This fidgety-eyed youth walked in front of Yi Imo and ordered him. Chapter 24. Shabby Gift. Chapter 24. Shabby Gift, Zhao Hong. Sorry, I'm busy right now. Please sit somewhere else. Ning Qingxue was annoyed since she finally summoned the courage to say what she wanted but was interrupted. Zhao Hong looked at Yi Imo in surprise and was wondering how this poor-looking person, who somehow found his way in here, could be connected to Ning Qingxue. Hello, I'm Zhao Hong. I just came back from Cambridge University, and I'll be staying at the Ninghai government office for now. If you have any trouble in Ninghai, just come to me. I can help you with the trivial stuff. Zhao Hong didn't leave just because of Ning Qingxue's words, and instead extended his hands elegantly. For him, shaking hands with Yi Imo was due to Ning Qingxue. Although he didn't know why Ning Qingxue was talking to this person, he just wanted to get a good impression from Ning Qingxue. What took Zhao Hong by surprise was that Yi Imo casually took a fruit from the waiter's plate and didn't even seem to see Zhao Hong's hands. Zhao Hong's face reddened and awkwardly dropped his hand. He glared at Yi Imo and was just regretting extending his hand when Wang Su came over. Brother, you're quite something. Your move even tricked me. Nice technique. This is my number. We must have a talk sometimes. Wang Su patted Yi Imo's shoulder excitedly as soon as he came and gave him a name card with only his phone number. Yi Imo had a good first impression of Wang Su. He felt Wang Su was a decent person and could become friends. So once he heard Wang Su say this, he also smiled and said, Sure, gladly. Ning Qingxue saw Yi Imo's completely opposite attitudes towards two different people and seemed to be thinking about it. Brother Su, you are here. Hee. Zhao Hong saw Wang Su and laughed awkwardly. Fake foreigner. Why did you come back? Aren't you supposed to be in England? Wang Su's words were very straightforward. Zhao Hong said awkwardly, I have already graduated. I am now working in the government office at Ninghai City. I didn't think Brother Su had the time to come too. It was conveniently on the way for me to Ninghai. After Wang Su had responded to Zhao Hong, he turned to Yi Imo and said, Brother Yi, you must remember to call me later on. Oh, give me your number too. He doesn't have a phone. Su Jingwen's voice came here in time. Yi Imo laughed bitterly in his heart. No matter where he sat, there would be a lot of people surrounding him quickly. He didn't like this boisterous environment. He had the urge to give Su Jingwen her present and leave. Jingwen, happy birthday to you. I brought this diamond necklace from England just for you. I hope you will like it. Zhao Hong saw he was starting to be neglected from the conversation and hurried out to take his present. Thank you, Zhao Hong. After saying a few words, Su Jingwen took the necklace and gave it to the female servant in the background. As Zhao Hong saw that Su Jingwen didn't give his gift a second thought, a glimpse of disappointment flashed across his eyes. Sister Jingwen, I also brought something for you. Sume noticed the situation and immediately gave out a set of cosmetics products. At this moment, the guests all started giving their gifts, but many people already gave their presents at the door. Those who came in to give her the gifts were all Su Jingwen's good friends. Even Ning Qingxue gave an exquisite chest brooch. Yimo then realized that, although he deemed his present to be the most precious, its look compared to other people's presents was barely acceptable. However, at this moment, Su Jingwen had to look full of hope at him. Yimo smiled bitterly. He took out the bracelet he made from his pocket and gave it to Su Jingwen as he said, I made this myself. I know it's a bit shabby, and I apologize, but I didn't have the money to buy something more expensive. The bracelet was made of 6 pea-sized beads scattered loosely at different places. It was easily discernible that the jade had a crappy quality and obviously didn't look good. Everyone around them looked at Emo's gift in surprise and thought, even if you didn't have money, a random piece of jewelry would still look better than this weird bracelet you made yourself. The beads are ugly. Perhaps it was even made from a fake piece of jade. If that was true, then this bracelet was only worth a few dollars, which was much cheaper than any finished good. PFFF. Some people in the crowd finally couldn't hold it in and laughed. This guy really was unique. Not only did he wear poor clothes, but also gave such a poor presents. This present is really unique, probably the only one that exists in the world, hee. Zhao Hong saw Yimo offering this gift and finally found a chance to ridicule Yimo. Su Jingwen rolled her eyes towards Zhao Hong but happily accepted Yimo's bracelet while she wore it joyfully on her wrist. Thank you. Thank you for making a present for me yourself. I really like this bracelet. Does it have a name? Yimo smiled and said, I named it the 6 Harmony. 6 Harmony? This name is really quite unique. Sume looked at the sanguine Su Jingwen and wanted to say something about Yimo but resisted the urge to. Ning Qingxue saw Yimo giving such a cheap present yet still had a calm face without any sign of uneasiness. And when she looked at Su Jingwen's joy of receiving the present, Ning Qingxue suddenly felt a weird feeling that she couldn't explain. Soft music played, and the first dance was coming. Just when everyone started guessing who Su Jingwen would get to dance with her for the first song, Su Jingwen looked at Yimo and said, Yimo, would you dance with me for this tune? He is Yimo. Zhao Hong obviously heard about the things between Yimo and Ning Qingxue, and his expression became weird. From Su Jingwen accepting Yimo's present and wearing it on her hand to inviting Yimo to dance with her, even those who didn't know Su Jingwen knew that Yimo was probably someone Su Jingwen pushed out to be a shield. It was to defend against those who wanted to dance with her tonight. However, Ning Qingxue didn't think this way. She felt that Su Jingwen genuinely wanted to invite Yimo to dance. Although she didn't know why Su Jingwen would do something like this, there was an unreasonable feeling of annoyance in her heart. She immediately felt confused about her feelings. Yimo also didn't think Su Jingwen would invite him to this gathering for this and said awkwardly, Unfortunately, I don't know how to dance at all. Su Jingwen became dazed for a moment. She considered everything else except for the fact that Yimo couldn't dance. Although Yimo was abandoned by the Yi family, he was still once a young master there, and he was a student of Ninghai University. How could he not know how to dance? Only Li Mumei knew that Yimo really didn't know how to dance. In the past, although Yimo was boastful, he never seemed to go to the dance floors or clubs. He barely had any friends and only liked to show off and be arrogant. Chapter 25. The First Dance. Chapter 25. The First Dance, I can teach you. Su Jingwen responded. She also knew this was an excuse, but she would find it hard to reject if someone else offered to dance with her first. Of course, as soon as Su Jingwen said those words, the surrounding people looked at her. Teach him to dance? Could this be learned in such a short moment? Jingwen, How about this? The first dance is about to begin. I'll dance with you first, and I'll call a few professional dancers to teach Emo how to dance later. The one speaking was Wang Peng. When did he come? Emo thought as he looked at Wang Peng, whose eyes were watching him back coldly. The warning was obvious in his eyes. However, Emo became vigilant. It was not because Wang Peng showed animosity towards him, but because Wang Peng's hands were healed. Emo knew his technique. He left a sliver of Kai inside Wang Peng's bones, and, with the modern medical standards, there was no method to remove it. If he wanted to have his wrist completely cured, he needed a master who had already cultivated Qi, or a cultivator that cultivated Qi. There were masters like this. It looked like he needed to be careful in the future. He didn't know what the masters here were capable of, so he had to stay vigilant. Although there didn't seem to be any cultivators here, who could be sure? He was a cultivator hidden in the city himself. And even normal cultivators were no match for some people who cultivate mortal martial arts to the absolute limit. Although Emo cultivated both, he still didn't dare to be careless. After all, his powers were still relatively low. No need, Emo, let me teach you. Su Jingwen immediately refused Wang Peng's suggestion and did not take her eyes off Emo, who smiled faintly. If Wang Peng hadn't arrived, he would have probably said that he was not able to learn it in such a short time. But since Wang Peng came and targeted him, Emo wouldn't back down. Okay, you don't need to teach me, just tell me once. Hearing Emo's words, Wang Peng was even more annoyed at Emo. He can learn it just by being told once? No one would believe that. Even Su Jingwen didn't believe him, but she only needed Emo to complete the dance with her. She didn't really think that Emo only needed to be told once to learn it without any practice. However, since Emo had already said that, Su Jingwen explained to him the moves of the waltz and even showed him a few moves. That's enough. Seeing Su Jingwen had finished, Emo smiled and stopped her. At this time, the first dance music was already beginning. Everyone looked at Emo and Su Jingwen walking into the dance pit. They wanted to see how Emo would perform, and some people were waiting to see Emo be embarrassed. Ning Qingxue looked at Emo. She had a feeling that Emo's smile meant that he was confident on the matter. Emo grabbed Su Jingwen's hand, and a faint aroma wafted to his nose, engulfing him in a complex, indescribable feeling. Other than the moment he fled with his master, he had never been so close to any woman. His heart started to beat faster. Although Luoying carried him to escape in his last life, that moment was too short and didn't even have the chance to react before he fell unconscious. Today, it was different, for he was grabbing Su Jingwen's hand and even moving with the music. Emo, you cheated me. You said you didn't know how to dance, but your dance moves are perfectly fine. I won't believe that you could dance so well with me just telling you once. When Su Jingwen started to dance with Emo, she immediately felt that Emo's was not someone dancing for the first time. His moves were agiler and more in sync with the music than hers. Emo didn't explain why he would know just by being told once. It was useless to even if he did anyway. Could he tell Su Jingwen that he had spirit sense? These moves were way too simplistic compared to what he cultivated. Instead, he just asked, "Do you often dance?" Emo held onto Su Jingwen's hand and passed on his body temperature. Occasionally, she would brush against Emo's body. Su Jingwen felt like she was playing with fire. The masculine charisma from Emo's body made her feel lost, yet his light breath on her made her feel great calmness. Was he really a student? Everyone around saw Emo and Su Jingwen dancing moves charged with chemistry, and everyone came to the realization that this Emo was only pretending not to know how to dance. In this era, which young master didn't know how to dance? Wang Peng's face was pale with fury as he felt played and cheated. This made him very annoyed, and soon, he put Emo in the same position in his heart as the person who sold the charms. A gruesome fate would await him. Ning Qingxue looked quietly at Emo and Su Jingwen's synchronized dance moves as she listened to the soft music. It was unknown what she was thinking, but her face seemed calm. After the tune was over, Su Jingwen appeared to linger in the mood, but after hearing the claps around her, she realized the song was over yet couldn't help but reminisce. The music started playing again, and everyone began to look for a dance partner as they entered the dance pit. Just when Wang Peng wanted to invite Su Jingwen again to dance, he suddenly saw Ning Qingxue, and his eyes immediately brightened up. He hurriedly walked over and asked, "Hello, my name is Wang Pong. May I have the honor to dance with you?" Ning Qingxue looked coldly at Wang Pong and didn't even reply. Instead, she walked in front of Yimo and said, "Yimo, I didn't have the chance to finish what I was saying before. Could we continue this conversation?" Wang Pong became even angrier, and his face grew paler. Su Jingwen already knew that Ning Qingxue and Yimo had broken their marriage pact, but she didn't know why Ning Qingxue kept asking for Yimo. Was there something else? Just when Su Jingwen wanted to say something, Li Mumei walked over and pulled Su Jingwen. "Jingwen, I have some things I need to talk to you about. Let's go." Seeing Su Jingwen, who was already far away, Yimo looked at Ning Qingxue and said, "Okay, we'll sit for a while on the side." Yimo was originally planning to leave after finishing this dance, but could only stay due to Ning Qingxue. Wang Peng looked at the beautiful goddess-like Ning Qingxue, being taken away by Yimo. Although he was livid, there was nothing he could do. All he could think about was when he would teach this guy a harsh lesson. After finding a far-off corner to sit, Yimo spoke straightforwardly. "I'm no longer a member of the Yi family in Beijing. We are now two people from two worlds. What do you need me to do?" Ning Qingxue stayed quiet for quite a while before saying, "Yimo, I don't want to say it here. Could we go to where you live tonight? I'm sorry, but I really need your help." "What?" Yimo thought he heard wrong. A girl like Ning Qingxue would take the initiative to ask to go to his place at night? No matter what it was, this didn't seem to be right. Chapter 26. Taking Ning Qingxue Home. Chapter 26. Taking Ning Qingxue Home. What? Qingxue wants to marry Yimo? How is this possible? Su Jingwen was also shocked by Li Mumei's words. She didn't think that Ning Qingxue had such a crazy idea. Her first reaction was actually to oppose the decision, and Li Mumei looked at Su Jingwen with some degree of shock to her response to the situation. Su Jingwen also seemed to realize that her reaction was inappropriate and ridiculed herself. "I'm only saying Qingxue is such an excellent girl. How could she, or rather, why would she decide to marry Yimo? Even if she wanted to avoid the marriage arranged by her family, she shouldn't do that to herself." Li Mumei sighed and replied, "It's because Yimo is disabled that Qingxue would make such a decision. Sister Qingxue is really unfortunate. However, today I saw Yimo, and he is completely different from the Yimo in my memories. I had no idea a person could change so much. Sigh. If he weren't kicked out of the Yi family and didn't have a problem with his body, then everything would be perfect." Su Jingwen sunk back into silence. She didn't know why, but unconsciously, she just wanted to disagree with Yimo marrying Ning Qingxue, but she couldn't find any reason. Was it just because he danced with me today? Or was it because he looked like that master who sold me the charms? What's wrong? Jingwen? Li Mumei saw Su Jingwen become silent and hurriedly asked, "Oh, nothing. I was just wondering if maybe I could help with something?" Su Jingwen was dragged back into the reality by Li Mumei. Li Mumei didn't know why Su Jingwen's mind always wandered off, so she could only say, "I will send you some photos of Ning Qingxue and Yimo sleeping together in pajamas to you. You just need to find an entertainment media outlet to release them, and then find some journalists to interview them about their marriage." Su Jingwen looked at Li Mumei with her eyes wide open and said after a while, "You thought of such a wicked idea? You will damage Qingxue's reputation." Li Mumei sighed once again before responding. Even if her reputation was damaged, it is better than being in the hands of Song Shaowen. Your Su family is also in Beijing. I think you know what sort of hungry wolf Song Shaowen is. If Sister Qingxue had a choice, do you think that she would want to do this? Su Jingwen already knew what sort of person Song Shaowen was. Saying he was bad was the understatement of the year. He was a demon that ate humans without spitting the bones, and countless girls in Beijing suffered in his hands. She also understood why Ning Qingxue would make this decision. After a few moments of thinking, Su Jingwen replied, "However, this way, wouldn't Yimo be the victim? He's innocent here. I also know that he is innocent, and initially, I thought that by giving him some money, he would be glad to do it. But I almost couldn't recognize the Yimo of today compared to the Yimo from the past. Could a person really change this much after experiencing hardship? I can no longer be of any help with this situation. We can only wait and see if Yemo wishes to help Ning Qingxue, and, if he doesn't, then there's nothing we can do anymore, Li Mumei said helplessly. Su Jingwen opened her mouth, but eventually didn't say anything. At this moment, both of them were silent. What would be so important to you that we would have to go where I live for you to say it? Can't you say it here? Yemo looked at her with surprise. Ning Qingxue lowered her head. She couldn't bear to explain the plan to Yemo. If Yemo didn't agree to Li Mumei's plan, would leaving the country even work? After thinking for a while, she grounded her teeth and said, I want to go to your place tonight because there's something I have to talk to you about privately. Seeing how she suddenly popped this sentence with tightly frowned eyebrows, Yemo sighed. Although he didn't know Ning Qingxue's intentions, he seemed to see his master before him with tightly knit eyebrows like that. So he said helplessly, Fine, you can come with me. We will leave in a moment, but please just wait for me a little. I have to say goodbye to Su Jingwen first. You agree? Ning Qingxue stood up in pleasant surprise. The first time she saw Yemo, she was prepared to be rejected by him since he was completely different from what Li Mumei told her. She didn't think Yemo would agree so easily. Jingwen, I'm going. Qingxue has some issues she would like to discuss and is coming with me. Just when Yemo stood up, he saw Su Jingwen walk over with another girl. He seemed to have seen that girl before, but didn't have any impression of her. Li Mumei saw that Yemo didn't even seem to notice her as if he didn't know her. She thought to herself that he had definitely changed. Yemo, you agreed? Su Jingwen looked at Ning Qingxue and Yemo with a weird look. After her reply, she then realized why she would ask something like that. Meanwhile, Yemo looked at the three girls' expressions and understood that there had to be something he didn't know. Yet he just smiled faintly. Even if there was something he didn't know, he, Yemo, wasn't afraid of anything. When Ning Qingxue took her luggage case and went on the taxi with Yemo, she suddenly experienced a weird feeling. From the moment she walked on the streets with Yemo, it seemed as though all the pressure and worry in her heart were gone and was suddenly relieved. This place is where you live? Ning Qingxue had an immediate sense of pleasantry after seeing Yemo residing in a house with a yard. This place was soundless, and the environment was very elegant. He really knew how to find places and discovered such a good place to live. Yemo smiled and said, Yeah, it cannot, however, compare with where you live. It's a bit shabby. Ning Qingxue shook her head and said, No, I really like it here. Yemo, you're finally back? Let me tell you, last time you went, who is she? When Su Wei first glanced upon Ning Qingxue, she was shocked by Ning Qingxue's beauty. She always thought she had been good-looking, but compared with Ning Qingxue, she was like an ugly duck. This shy Nin could actually bring home such a beautiful girl? You really couldn't judge people by their appearances, but Yemo didn't seem to be ugly either. Ning Qingxue also saw Su Wei and, as she noticed that the girl gave people a refreshing feeling, she thought, Yemo's tastes are not bad. No wonder he was hesitating whether he should take me home. It was because he already had a girl he was living with. Ning Qingxue even started to wonder if Yemo was a natural playboy, but suddenly realized that her thoughts were a bit revolting. She didn't really care about these things. She only came to get married to him. Wait, wouldn't this girl be opposed to that? Ning Qingxue suddenly felt uneasy. The atmosphere was a bit awkward, and just when the two girls thought Yemo could help them introduce each other, Yemo walked inside first. Ning Qingxue looked at Su Wei but could only follow Yemo and walk inside. You can sleep in my room tonight. If you have something that you want to tell me, you can do it now, Yemo told her as he brought Ning Qingxue to his room. Then where are you going to sleep tonight? Ning Qingxue came planning to sleep in the same room as Yemo but on the couch. She only needed people to know she was sleeping in the same room as Yemo. However, when she asked this, she immediately felt it was inappropriate. It wasn't because she was shy. She was already prepared and wasn't embarrassed about it. She just suddenly remembered the girl at the door. She didn't think Yemo already had a girlfriend and was living with her. In her eyes, if they weren't in a relationship, they had no reason to live together. Ning Qingxue didn't have the concept of renting a place together in her mind. No need. I have a place to stay, Yemo said casually. Sorry, Yimo, did I cause misunderstandings with your girlfriend? Ning Qingxue asked uneasily. Her words were also meant to test and see if that girl was his girlfriend or not. Yimo waved his hand calmly and didn't bother explaining to Ning Qingxue, as he felt that he didn't need to. Instead, he said, "You have something to tell me. Now that we're here, you can say it." Chapter 27. Is this a business deal? Chapter 27. Is this a business deal? Seeing that Yimo didn't deny, Ning Qingxue sighed. He had a girlfriend, and she knew this thing couldn't be done. However, he didn't seem to be living with her. Now that she came, she instead gave him the opportunity to live with his girlfriend. Because I want to get married to you. Ning Qingxue couldn't find a proper way to put it, so she just said it straight out. What took her by surprise was that Yimo didn't seem shocked at all. Yimo's appearance did make Ning Qingxue feel strange. She saw that Yimo was very calm and didn't say a word, so a moment later, she asked quietly, "Aren't you curious? Don't you want to ask me why?" Although the current Yimo wasn't extremely calculative, how could Ning Qingxue hide her thoughts from him? From the time when Wang Ying told him that Ning Qingxue was using him to stop others from proposing to her, to how she asked to come to his house at night and even asked to get married to him, he had already connected these things and analyzed them. Yimo immediately knew that Ning Qingxue was asking to use him as a shield again. Seeing Yimo's calm expression while remaining silent, Ning Qingxue was feeling more unrest and asked guiltily, "I won't obstruct you and your girlfriend. I just need everyone else to know that we are living together and even got married. I will explain it to your girlfriend." As he expected, she wanted to use him as a shield again. Losing his interest, Yimo waved his hand and said, "You don't need to explain it to other people. This thing has nothing to do with Su Wei. She doesn't have any business with you." Although hesitating for a moment and wanting to reject, Yimo saw Ning Qingxue's tragic eyes and was a bit moved. Although this woman had the intention to use him, she didn't hide it. Furthermore, Yimo didn't even care if he was used in this way. The main reason that prompted Yimo to help her was her sorrowful eyes that made his heart beat faster. Although he didn't know what happened to Ning Qingxue, since she was forced to make such a decision, it meant that what was about to happen to her wasn't something she could bear with. "I can pay money. I won't make you help out for nothing." Seeing that Yimo was hesitating, Ning Qingxue hurried to add the words, "Fine, I agree. When we get the marriage certificate is up to you. However, I don't want you to go around telling people my identity." Yimo's reply was very plain, as if talking about something completely irrelevant to himself. Ning Qingxue looked at Yimo, surprised by joy. She didn't think that Yimo would agree to her words without asking her any questions. Regardless of what Yimo thought, she was still grateful towards him. As for Yimo's last sentence, she took it as not allowing her to tell Su Wei. This card contained $500,000. You can use that for now. The password is 575757. Ning Qingxue took out a card and gave it to Yimo. Yimo took the card and laughed at himself as he said, "Very well. Since you have paid now, this is a business deal between us. When you feel the agreement is over, you can leave yourself. I'm going to rest now." Seeing Yimo's desolate back figure, Ning Qingxue's heart suddenly squeezed. It was as though she did something wrong. What did she do wrong? Ning Qingxue was sitting on Yimo's bed and was lost in thought. Perhaps what she felt wrong was Yimo agreeing due to the money, which meant that Mu Mei was right about him. When Yimo walked out of his room, Su Wei had already gone into hers. He held the credit card as waves erupted in his heart. The instant he took the credit card, he had the urge to throw the card in her face and tell her to piss off. The only reason he let Ning Qingxue come in and even help her was due to the striking resemblance between his helpless master and Ning Qingxue's eyes filled with melancholy. Shaking his head, he started wondering to himself what Ning Qingxue did wrongly. Probably in her mind, she thought that what she did was right. Anyway, he already gave his room to Ning Qingxue, so Yimo had nowhere to go. Luckily, he had always been cultivating on the north side of the yard, which was near the back. In this spot, there was an old tree, and every time Yimo cultivated under it, he felt more peaceful. Yimo sat under the tree cultivating for an entire night. He felt his chi getting stronger and couldn't help but to smile faintly. All the annoyance from last night had dissipated and, from today onwards, he decided that it would be pretty good to cultivate here each night. It looked like people needed to be pushed to be motivated. Before Ning Qingxue could even discuss when they would get married, Yimo went straight to school. When Yimo had already run to the school, Ning Qingxue and Su Wei finally got up. After they had greeted as they saw each other, both of them became a bit shy. For them, Yimo was sleeping with the other the night before. Perhaps it was more strange for Ning Qingxue, as she knew that Yimo was impotent and wondered how he could sleep with someone, but obviously, she would be too embarrassed to ask such a question. After studying for half the day in the library, Yimo went to the dorms and slept during the whole afternoon. At night, he was dragged by Shirshio to the restaurant for food. The main reason was that he still got a free coupon for the Juwei restaurant at the school. Yimo, you were really cool yesterday. Did you know? After you had left, Yin Yin was so angry that her face was pale. If it wasn't for Merciless Bing who helped her out, I think she would have tried to find a hole in the ground to crawl into. By the way, who was the woman that came for you yesterday? She was really pretty. Could she be a star? No, even a star isn't as pretty as her. Shirshio said with a face full of excitement. He would only make such an exaggerated expression with Yimo. Yimo smiled as he patted Shirshio's shoulders and said, I've slept the whole afternoon, and I'm hungry already. Let's go eat? Shirshio suddenly sighed and said, Yimo, to be honest, I'm concerned about you. Aren't you worried yourself at all? We're almost graduating, but you already had to retake the exams last semester. You probably can't even get a graduation certificate, much less a degree, and yet, you still sleep every day, Sai. Yimo said in disagreement. Is there any use in worrying? If worrying were useful, I would worry every day. Put your mind at ease. I have my way. If you graduate and can't find a job, you can come to me. I'll be responsible for getting you a job and get you fed. Pfft. Never mind. What I want is not just a job that will get me fed. My relative says that he can help me find a job at a government department. I bet you are jealous. Let's go. I can already smell the aroma of Juwei restaurant. Shirshio quickly pulled Yimo into Juwei restaurant. Juwei restaurant was the most famous restaurant in Ninghai University. The dishes were excellent and had a particular taste. Although it wasn't as good as Westlake family's, Yimo still liked their style. Shirshio only had a $200 coupon, but that was enough for the two of them. Although Yimo was close with Shirshio, they barely had the chance to eat together. Yimo asked for another 2 bottles of white wine, and the two kept eating until 7 to 8 p.m. Shirshio was a lightweight, and the 2 bottles of wine were pretty much all consumed by Yimo. When Yimo took the tipsy Shirshio and left Juwei restaurant, he actually saw Zheng Wanqiao who went to the toilet. Although it was just his back, how powerful were Yimo's eyes? He knew it was him already. He was attacked by this guy last time, and although he didn't suffer any losses, he remained very unsatisfied inside. Now that he saw this man again, how could he let him go? He hurriedly dumped Shirshio on the dorm bed before immediately coming back outside Juwei restaurant and waited. He estimated that this Zheng Wanqiao's family had some power, so when he would be teaching him a lesson, he had to cover his face. If it were only according to Yimo's will, he would have killed him straight away. But he also knew that if he murdered Zheng Wanqiao, he would most likely become the suspect number 1. Therefore, it would be best to beat him until he can't manage to live his own life. Yimo didn't wait very long before seeing Zheng Wanqiao leave Juwei restaurant speaking on the phone. Chapter 28. Stalking. Chapter 28. Stalking. Zheng Wanqiao went in his BMW and drove towards a far-off place, unaware that Yimo was following him. Soon the car stopped as a 40 or so-year-old man, who was carrying a woman, rushed at the BMW while Zheng Wanqiao hurried out of the car and went to help him. What made Yimo surprised was that he knew the woman. The woman, carried by both Zheng Wanqiao and the other man, was Yun Bing, who was also known as Merciless Bing, Yimo's English teacher. Why would Yun Bing be waiting for Zheng Wanqiao here? Yimo was astonished, but he didn't keep it on his mind. It looked like Yun Bing was drunk or something and needed people to hold her. Under the dim yellow streetlight, Zheng Wanqiao quickly carried Yun Bing into his BMW. Although he didn't know what the relationship between Yun Bing and Zheng Wanqiao was, being carried into the car drunk like that was definitely not right. However, Yimo didn't have a good impression of Yunbing and wouldn't care about what happened to her. Today, he was here to take care of Jinwan Xiao. The BMW spewed exhaust gases and drove off while Yimo followed behind secretly. Luckily, they were in the city, and the speed limit wasn't high. Right now, Yimo's cloud shadow step was at a high enough level that he could keep up with the car. More than 10 minutes later, the BMW drove into a quiet district. However, Yimo couldn't go in from the main entrance. After making sure there were no cameras around, Yimo jumped over a wall into the small living district and kept his eyes on the BMW from a distance. He quickly saw the car stopping outside a building. Jinwan Xiao and the other man hurriedly carried Yunbing up the stairs, but Yimo could only watch from below as he was only in the first stage of qi gathering. If he was in stage 3, he could follow them with an invisibility art. However, if he followed now he would be seen, and it wasn't suitable to teach Jinwan Xiao a lesson in the stairways. It would be better inside. Yimo waited down there for some time, and before long, a light in a room on the 4th floor lit up. Yimo immediately knew where they went and didn't hesitate to climb up through the window, and soon, he entered the lit-up room through the kitchen. "Young Master Xiao, I am ready." Hearing that voice, Yimo knew this was the other man talking. "Start when I go on this woman. Remember to film it clearly and capture all the specifics, especially when she moans. I want all of it. I don't believe that she won't cooperate after all that." After Jinwan Xiao's words, Yimo heard a ripping sound, like clothes being shred. So, these two want to gang rape Merciless Bing and also want to record it. He wondered whether she had had a conflict with the two in the past, or if she had some incriminating evidence against them in her hands for the situation to be like that. Yimo originally thought the ripping move was done by Jinwan Xiao, but when he kicked the door open, he found out the shredding movement was made by Yunbing herself. Yunbing's face was ruddy and steaming, and it was obvious that she was under the influence of some potent aphrodisiacs. She had already ripped off half the clothes in front of her chest, showing 2 snow-white balls that were firm and plump, and even Yimo was a bit phased after seeing them. "Who are you?" As Yimo kicked open the door, Jinwan Xiao and the cameraman were immediately frightened. However, when they saw a single man walking in with a covered face, they immediately gasped a sigh of relief. Jinwan Xiao was aware that the man behind him knew martial arts and was quite proficient at it. "Friend, what do you want to do? If you just want money, we don't need to cross paths, and we can let you play after we finish enjoying ourselves. This is a high-quality woman." Jinwan Xiao was wary of Yimo as he was talking. At the same time, he was putting back on the clothes he was about to take off. "Human scum." Yimo just spoke 2 words and kicked Jinwan Xiao, whose hand was still on the button, when he was sent flying by Yimo, crashing into the wall. When he fell down, he immediately fainted. The middle-aged cameraman saw this masked person attacking with dexterity, so he immediately threw his camera aside and took out a knife from his waist, stabbing towards Yimo. His moves were reasonably agile. However, his opponent was Yimo. In Yimo's eyes, this guy was even worse than Feng Weicheng, who wanted to fight him in the park last time. He made 2 consecutive kicks and used only one move to send flying this person, who Jinwan Xiao thought was quite powerful. While the middle-aged man flew, he sent the camera beside him flying into the ceiling and crashed, shattering into pieces. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man fell on top of Jinwan Xiao. "Hold it, friend. Do you know who he is? He is the son of Mayor Zheng. Aren't you afraid?" This middle-aged man was kicked to the ground and yet still wanted to threaten him. Yimo sneered and kicked this man on the head. He fainted promptly, as if on command. Yimo looked at the room. On the wall hung a picture of Yunbing, and another one was of her carrying a little girl. He thought that this was Yunbing's room and that Jinwan Xiao was really sinister. If he had done these things with Yunbing in her room and made it into a video, Yunbing would likely be forced to suicide or to comply with Wan Xiao's every need. He wondered what Jinwan Xiao wanted from Yunbing. It couldn't be just purely wanting to go in bed with her. Yimo didn't want to bother with these things and carried the unconscious middle-aged man and Jinwan Xiao. He didn't want to teach them a lesson in her room, and Yunbing didn't look very appropriate. Just when Yimo walked to the door, Yunbing's moan sounded, and there was another ripping sound of clothes. Yimo turned around and saw Yunbing had stripped down to 3 spots that were barely covered. The almost completely nude Yun Bing laying on the bed with her almost uncovered 3 spots and her pink translucent underwear made Yimo's heart beat really fast. However, Yimo immediately knew things weren't right. The aphrodisiac Yun Bing was under seemed to be too potent. He estimated that without sex, her body would probably be greatly damaged or even debilitated and cursed at how evil Zhen Wanxiao was. Yimo looked at Yun Bing's white yet ruddy-looking body and sighed. He dumped the 2 men outside and walked next to Yun Bing's bed as he wanted to help her push out the remaining drug power. However, just when Yimo walked in front of the bed, he was bear-hugged by Yun Bing like how a drowning person clutched to a wooden stump. The soft and aromatic body pushed into Yimo's arms, and Yimo uncontrollably felt aroused. Yun Bing seemed to exhale a comfortable breath and scratched Yimo's back with her fingers. She kept pushing her body onto Yimo as though she was pushing herself inside Yimo. Yimo's heart was burning with fire, but he was already in the first stage of qi gathering. After the short temptation, he immediately reacted and palmed Yun Bing's head. With the use of qi, a faint aroma of gas was pulled out of Yun Bing's body. As Yimo continued to use qi to pull out the aphrodisiac component in Yun Bing's body, Yun Bing gradually settled down. After a long time, Yimo was full of sweat, but finally managed to push out the remaining components from her body. He was relieved and took down the black clothes to wipe the sweat from his head. However, Yun Bing woke up coincidentally at this exact moment. Abruptly, she felt she was almost completely nude and opened her eyes in horror seeing Yimo, who was wiping his sweat and, under embarrassment and rage, she fainted once again. Chapter 29. Ning Qingshue's Second Impression. Chapter 29. Ning Qingshue's second impression. Yimo was fatigued and didn't realize that Yun Bing had already woken up once. He pulled a quilt over Yun Bing's body and said to her, "You've been lucky today. With your attitude towards me, I didn't want to save you, but I'm in a good mood today." Yimo closed the door and once again carried the middle-aged man and Zheng Wenxiao and left. He stripped bare Zheng Wanxiao and the middle-aged man and beat them up. Then he kicked them till their private areas were busted before dumping them on the back seat of the car, stacked on top of each other. Then, he drove the BMW away until he came to the Genesis Square and parked it in a frequented and conspicuous place. Before he left, he didn't forget to leave all the windows open. Yimo went out for the whole day while Ning Qingxue was getting a bit worried in the yard. She was planning to get the marriage certificate that day, but Yimo still hadn't returned. It was as though he had forgotten what he agreed to her. When Suwei and Ning Qingxue saw each other in the morning, it was a bit awkward. Suwei didn't know how Yimo found such a stunning girl like Ning Qingxue, and what this beautiful woman could be possibly thinking, living together with someone as poor as Yimo before marriage. That just goes to show that you really couldn't judge someone by their appearance. Although Yimo was quite a good person in Suwei's impression, Ning Qingxue seemed to be way out of his league. Ning Qingshue's thoughts were similar to Suwei's. She thought about why Suwei was living together with Yimo since he was known to have a problem concerning his more intimate life. However, she couldn't really ask this, and both of them thought they were in the right. Seeing that Suwei had gone to work, Ning Qingxue felt uncomfortable staying in this unfamiliar yard by herself. However, she waited for a long time for Yimo to no avail. She saw there were many flowers cultivated in Yimo's yard. Originally, she thought it was Suwei who was responsible, but they seemed to be planted on Yimo's side. Ning Qingxue looked at those flowers and discovered one of them with a silver grass, which seemed to be cared for very well. There were no flowers or grass nearby its spot and had a very large place all to itself. She walked around the yard for a while before going back to the room. Yimo's room was simple. Other than a bed, there was just a desk. The only thing she didn't understand was that there was a small box and a pot seemingly used to cook herbs. As for what was inside the box, Ning Qingxue didn't know and didn't have any desire to open it. She didn't like to invade other people's privacy. As for that peculiar pot, she didn't have the urge to look at it either. She suddenly felt that Yimo was different from what Li Mumei said about him, but at the same time similar to her description. This gave her an odd, uncanny feeling. She didn't know how Yimo knew Su Jingwen, but she seemed to have a good impression of him. Ning Qingxue thought about when she first saw Yimo dancing so flawlessly in synchronization with Su Jingwen, and when he gave a present to Su Jingwen. To her own surprise, she had felt uncomfortable, even perhaps a little jealous, watching the event unfold. She couldn't help but laugh at herself. Now, she saw with her own eyes that Yimo lived with the girl next door, and oddly she felt very calm. Thinking about how Yimo took her $500,000 card without hesitation made her feel that Yimo fit Li Mumei's description perfectly, and just like that, her last remaining guilt towards Yimo was gone. Now, she could only wait until Yimo returned and get a marriage certificate with him. Then she would get Li Mumei to copy the certificate and release her private photos with Yimo to the public. If after all that, she still couldn't get rid of the Song family's pestering, she wouldn't know what to do anymore. When Yimo returned to the yard, Su Wei and Ning Qingxue had gone to sleep already. Seeing that both lights were turned off, he didn't go in but instead returned to the spot with the tree in the back of the yard and cultivated under it. Ning Qingxue heard the sound of the door and knew Yimo came back. She wondered if he came back so late each night, and, after a while, she heard the sound of Su Wei's door. Time flew by quickly during cultivation. Yimo got up in the morning and finished a set of martial arts before washing himself. Then Su Wei got up and greeted Yimo. However, while she had a strange look on her face, she concealed it very soon. She hurriedly got ready to work and left. Ning Qingxue, who was also wide awake, heard the sound of Yimo and Su Wei in the yard, but resisted the urge to come out and walked out once Su Wei had left. Ning Qingxue saw Yimo caring for those flowers and confirmed her suspicions that they were really planted by him. A grown man actually liked to tend to these sort of things. She wondered if he was genuinely caring for the flowers or if it was his sexual orientations that were different than anticipated. "Oh, you're awake." Yimo turned his head and saw Ning Qingxue, but didn't add anything after that one sentence. After a long, awkward pause, he continued, "Why do you look so bad? Did you not eat yesterday?" Yimo saw the atmosphere was quiet between the two and thus took the initiative to start a conversation. However, he didn't think that Ning Qingxue shook her head and said, "I was not hungry, so I didn't eat yesterday." When Yimo heard that she didn't eat yesterday, he became speechless. If he didn't eat anything for a whole day, that would be okay for him as the qi would help him, but it wouldn't be the same for Ning Qingxue. She wasn't a cultivator. It wasn't surprising that her complexion was so bad. "Go wash first, we'll go eat later." Yimo only said a few words and went back to taking care of his precious silver heart grass. That was his priceless asset after all. After Ning Qingxue was ready, Yimo took her to the nearby road restaurant and got a few bowl of rice congee and some buns. Seeing the appetite of Yimo, who ate 2 bowls of congee and 5 buns, Ning Qingxue was full after barely eating half a bun and half a bowl of congee, despite not eating anything yesterday. "Why do you have to get married to him?" Yimo couldn't finish his words before being interrupted by Ning Qingxue again. "You don't need to ask that much. You just need to know that this is a deal between us, that's all." Ever since Yimo took that card from her without hesitation and she learned that he was living with Su Wei, Ning Qingxue felt her mood become worse. She doubted that the indifferent Yimo she saw during Su Jingwen's birthday party was a fake. If Yimo asked this question when they first saw each other, she would perhaps tell Yimo that she just wanted to rid herself of the Song family. But now, she didn't want to say anything to Yimo. She would pay the money and Yimo would play his part. This was just a simple deal. After the deal, they would part ways, and the two wouldn't have nothing to do with each other anymore. As if noticing Ning Qingxue's change in tone, Yimo smiled faintly and let the subject go. He wasn't about to get emotionally attached to the woman. Even if it was a marriage, it didn't affect him at all. Getting a marriage certificate was an easy thing as they only needed their identity paper and a picture together. Yimo sighed about how complicated getting married was in his past life, but now, he didn't think things would be so simple. However, he also noticed that divorce seemed to be even easier. So simple that the person didn't even need to come to divorce. Yimo didn't have the time to sigh. As soon as they collected their marriage certificate, Li Mumei came over and was going to help Yimo and Ning Qingxue take a few private photos. Chapter 30. Life After Marriage. Chapter 30. Life After Marriage. Why are you wearing pajamas? Yemo asked weirdly and wondered if they were getting some kinky photo shoot. As if understanding what Yemo thought, Li Mumei said, "If Qingxue is not scared, what are you scared of? Do you believe that you are the main character of the photo shoots?" Mumei. Although Ning Qingshue's views of Yemo weren't excellent, Li Mumei's curt words made her feel quite awkward. After all, these photo shoots did make Ning Qingxue feel somewhat repulsed. Yemo wanted to reject, but when he saw Ning Qingxue, her morose eyes once again reminded him of Luoying, so in the end, he still agreed. Perhaps in the depths of his heart, he subconsciously saw Ning Qingxue as his master Luoying, or used her as a way to think about Luoying. And plus, if Ning Qingxue wasn't scared, what should he be scared of? These sort of things shouldn't matter to him. He had nothing to lose even if he helped. He put on his pajamas and leaned on the head of the bed together with Ning Qingxue. Yemo had a strange feeling. Ning Qingshue's faint virgin smell enchanted him. He subconsciously moved closer to Ning Qingxue and didn't seem to realize that this was only an act. Ning Qingxue also wore pajamas and lay beside Yemo. Her eyes frowned as if she was repulsed, but her manner returned to normal quickly. Yemo's body didn't have a smell that she disliked. Instead, it was really fresh. That faint manliness with an almost infant-like smell made Ning Qingxue a bit confused. She seemed to notice Yemo move over closer to her, but unconsciously, she actually didn't move away. Instead, she leaned together with Yemo, closing her eyes. Ning Qingshue's body was very soft and made Yemo feel very comfortable. But not long after he squeezed together with Ning Qingxue, he realized this was a performance, and there was still a Li Mumei on the side. It wasn't time for him to be aroused. Thinking about this, Yemo was alerted in his heart and wanted to move aside. However, Li Mumei said in surprise, "You two, don't tell me you're actually into the act. Hey, I've taken the pictures already. You can come down." Really? Ning Qingxue was suddenly shocked awake and immediately blushed. She really didn't know how she got into it and didn't dare to look at Yemo and Li Mumei. Instead, she nervously grabbed her coat and pulled it over her body. Yemo laughed and touched his nose as he put on his clothes as though no one was around. Then, he left the room. Mumei, Ning Qingxue didn't seem to know how to explain her actions just then. She didn't know why she would be attracted by Yemo and didn't push him away. "It's okay. I've got the pictures ready. I'll send them to Jingwen later and bring a copy back to Beijing. From now on, you should just live here by yourself for now, for a month or so. Then, things would be clear and concrete. I'll come over and visit you frequently." Li Mumei then sighed and continued. "Luckily, Yemo has a particular condition. Otherwise, I think it would be really dangerous for you two to be together." Of course, Ning Qingxue knew what Li Mumei meant, but she didn't know how to argue against that. She even suspected that Yemo was a normal man. Otherwise, how could he sleep with Su Wei? Although she thought that, she was too embarrassed to say it out loud. However, she knew her feelings towards Yemo regardless of whether Yemo was impotent. Mumei thought too much. That was just an accident. At that moment, there was only peace in her heart and nothing else. The next day, the greatest news wasn't the news of Yemo and Ning Qingshue's marriage. Instead, it was the discovery of two homosexuals on the Genesis Square, a couple who drove a BMW. But when the police intervened, they realized one of them was the vice mayor's son, and both of them were heavily injured. Obviously, someone was behind all this. Although Zheng Wanxiao and the other man were saved in time, they had become mentally disabled. Now, this matter was an unsolved case. After Li Mumei had left, Yemo's life returned to what it was before. He found out that as long as he didn't bring home food, Ning Qingxue basically wouldn't eat. He didn't know that when Ning Qingxue came out, she only brought a card and she gave that card to him. Now, she didn't have any money on her. After what happened last time, she was too embarrassed to call Li Mumei. Plus, Yemo took $500,000 from her. It wasn't much even if she ate with Yemo's money. If it was just Yemo alone, he didn't really care what he ate and didn't even mind if he didn't. However, Ning Qingxue was here, so he had to bring food for Ning Qingxue each day. However, after a few days, he discovered that Ning Qingxue ate very little of the food he brought home. He sighed. He knew that Ning Qingxue probably had some diet habits and wasn't used to eating takeaway food. Therefore, Yimo could only buy vegetables and cook the food himself. However, he only had 50,000 on him, and after buying herbs and some other daily items, he only had 20,000 remaining. Meanwhile, he looked at Ning Qingxue's card. He thought that she lived at his place and ate with his money, so it wouldn't matter if he used her card for some money. He wasn't looking to keep the remaining money by the end of the deal anyway, so he only needed it for necessities. However, what made Yimo disappointed was that he could not withdraw 5 cents, much less $500,000 from Ning Qingxue's card. There was no other reason but that the card was frozen. Although a lot of things didn't go successfully, there was something good, and that was that Ning Qingxue didn't dislike Yimo's cooking. She actually ate quite a lot each time, which made Yimo rest easier. Otherwise, if Ning Qingxue became fragile as if a slight gust could topple her, that woman Li Mumei would probably become furious. Even though it didn't matter if she was furious, he was just scared that she would go to Ninghai University and go on a rampage. Plus, he didn't have a bad impression towards Ning Qingxue and even felt that she was decent, so he didn't want to see her starve either. Ning Qingxue was very strange. Although Yi Imo bought little amounts of vegetables home, when Yi Imo started cooking, she actually ate more. Perhaps because Yi Imo's cooking was suitable to her tastes, only a week later, she found out that she was a bit fatter than before. On the other hand, what made Yi Imo the happiest was that his silver heart grass was finally mature and the seeds were ready to harvest. Yi Imo carefully took the 39 silver heart grass seeds and put them in a jade bottle he prepared beforehand. He didn't want to plant them in this yard anymore because he wasn't going to live here for 2 years. After things had been settled here, he was going to leave Ninghai immediately, as he had the feeling that Ninghai was no longer suitable for him to stay. After taking the 39 seeds, Yi Imo started to prepare this silver heart grass. It was a silver heart grass in perfect conditions, and utilizing it the best way possible was the key. He might even reach the second stage of qi gathering thanks to it. With the remaining $20,000, Yi Imo spent more than 10,000 buying the best medical materials he could find to make a bowl of soup with the silver heart grass. Ning Qingxue asked Yi Imo to bring her a few books from the library each time he went out. She rarely left his house and usually stayed in the yard reading books. When Yi Imo tended to his flowers, she also watched silently. And when Yi Imo made a herbal soup, she also watched without making a sound and never asking anything. Sue usually came back at night and left very early for work. Other than exchanging a few sentences with Yi Imo, she rarely encountered Ning Qingxue. This made her remember the time when Yi Imo first came. Yi Imo was like that as well and barely saw her. Yi Imo prepared the entire bucket of herbs to fit into a bowl of soup and was prepared to drink it that night when he cultivated. Yi Imo, I want to ask for your help. Other than borrowing some books, Ning Qingxue seldom spoke with Yi Imo, and actually, this was the first time she took the initiative to talk to Yi Imo. Chapter 31. Helpless Blood Donation. Chapter 31. Helpless blood donation, what is it? Say it. I'm in a good mood today. Yi Imo had collected the seeds and turned the silver heart grass into a bowl of soup. He was indeed in a good mood today. Could you lend me $2,000? Ning Qingxue said calmly. To her, she thought Yi Imo wouldn't reject lending $2,000 to her because all of Yi Imo's money was hers before. I don't have the money. Yi Imo's good mood was slightly soured after Ning Qingxue's request. He only had $3,000 in his pocket right now, and Ning Qingxue just wanted to borrow $2,000 all of a sudden. Ning Qingxue was quite angry as she thought that he was so stingy. He took $500,000 from her, and yet didn't even want to lend her $2,000. How could a person be like this? If you just remove the interest from the $500,000 I gave you, it would be enough for $2,000. You are a man and have many things to do in the future. How can you be like this? Ning Qingxue didn't think she would actually say what she thought in her heart, and it seemed to be very reasonable. When Yi Imo saw Ning Qingxue was starting to plead for herself, he hurriedly held his hands up and said, "Stop, stop, stop." After, he took out a roll of notes and gave Ning Qingxue $2,000 as he said, "This is the only time. Next time, don't ask me for money because my money is hard-earned." Ning Qingxue was contemptuous, but eventually didn't rebuke Yi Imo. She thought that if his money didn't come easy, then no one's money came easy. He only needed to lend her a place to live, and he made $500,000. The reason Ning Qingxue wanted to borrow $2,000 was because she didn't have any money on her and was out of phone credit. Plus, she had to buy some feminine products. This made her very uncomfortable. That night, Yimo waited until Su Wei and Ning Qingxue went to sleep before walking to the tree in the backyard. He finished the soup in one gulp and started to cultivate. When the potent medicine blasted into Yimo's chest, he controlled the direction of his qi to rapidly change the tenacity and width of his meridians. Yimo was overwhelmed with joy as he didn't think that one silver heart grass had such potent medicinal power. It looked like there was hope for him in reaching the second stage of qi gathering. After 4 hours, the cultivation essence in Yimo's body started increasing rapidly. However, he soon felt that something wasn't right. When the cultivation essence in his body increased to a certain degree, it stopped and instead started to burn his meridians. Yimo was shocked. If this were to continue, he would truly become useless. He was wondering what was going on when the burning sensation and the bursting feeling in his meridians grew more intense and, in the spur of the moment, he could only bit his wrist. Spew. The heat that had nowhere to go rushed to his wrist as hot blood spewed out from it. For now, Yimo was relieved. Luckily, he thought of this idea abruptly. Otherwise, he would have been doomed. It seemed that he shouldn't have drunk all of it in one gulp. This medicinal soup that he made didn't have a few spirit grass from the original recipe. He had to use normal herbs to replace them, and therefore, there were side effects. After the burning sensation was appeased, Yimo immediately cultivated to heal the wound. Although he suddenly lost blood, Yimo had reached the tertiary stage of the first stage of qi gathering. There was such a breakthrough the first time he cultivated, and Yimo felt that the medicinal powers hadn't been exhausted. Perhaps if he kept cultivating, he would even reach stage 2. However, on the second day, just when Yimo finished his breakfast and was ready to go to school, he found that the scorching feeling in his body was present once again. He felt bad. Would he have to release all of his blood again? It made his heart ache to see all of this blood being released. But this couldn't overwhelm Yimo. He just went straight to the hospital to sell his blood. He didn't know how much of his blood was taken away until finally, the qi in his body calmed down. He gasped a sigh of relief. When he arrived at the school, he didn't go to the library and instead went to find a place to cultivate. These few days were crucial. He had to completely digest the medical liquid in order not to waste it. The next few days, Ning Qingxue had been in contact with Li Mumei every day. She didn't dare to think about the Ning family that was in pandemonium. Although there was also the news of her marriage with Yimo and Ning Hai, it was far less heated compared to in Beijing. The only thing that comforted Ning Qingxue was that ever since her news appeared on websites and newspapers, the Song family seemed to have given up and didn't bring up her matter with Song Shaoan again. In these few days, Yimo lived a life filled with joy and pain. His cultivation was improving every day, but he had to go donate blood to the hospital each day. Although the money he earned from blood donations wasn't much, it was still a source of income. The 6th night after he drank the soup, Yimo was cultivating when he suddenly heard a few cracks in his body. It was as though something was blasted open. His body started to feel free and comfortable. The remaining medicinal powers in his body had been all used up. His cultivation essence increased by many folds, and his spirit sense was able to reach out. He was finally at the second stage of qi gathering now. That really wasn't easy. He didn't need to go to the hospital and suffer again. At this moment, Yimo almost wanted to get up and yell, but he knew it was midnight. If he were to scream at that moment, people would think that he was a madman. But he really couldn't express the joy in his heart. The next day, Yimo bought some breakfast for Ning Qingxue and got ready to leave for school. He wanted to leave a few medical pills for Shirxiu. Since he was stage 2, it meant that he was going to leave soon. Shirxiu was his friend, so before he left Ning Hai, he was going to make a few medicinal pills in case of emergency. Originally, Yimo thought that after he had married Ning Qingxue and had released some of their photos taken together, there would be trouble for him. Yet surprisingly, after almost half a month, he didn't encounter any trouble. This made him gradually relaxed. Yimo. Ning Qingxue stopped him the moment Yimo was about to exit the door. As soon as Yimo heard this, he knew it wasn't going to be good. Last time she stopped him, he lost $2,000. What would it be this time? However, Ning Qingxue had called to him, and he couldn't just pretend he didn't hear it. He turned his head towards Ning Qingxue. She was still as beautiful as a goddess. The only difference was her physique a bit more plump. It seemed that his cooking during these periods of time was responsible for it. If a stranger were here, he would have thought that she came for a holiday and not seeking asylum. What? Yimo was forlorn. Seeing Yimo's helpless face, Ning Qingxue didn't feel happy. Am I not a match for you? Even if it was a fake wedding, I could still be a match for someone like you, she thought sadly. But luckily, her personality was indifferent. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to stay all by herself at Yimo's place for half a month. I have a classmate coming, and she is a journalist. You should know the purpose. Although I really don't want to go eat with her, I'm still under the scrutiny of other people. Could you come to eat with my classmate and I tonight? Ning Qingxue's face returned to her previous calm. I know how to cook, so why going out to eat? Yimo's first thought was that cooking at home would save money. You? Ning Qingxue shook her head in disbelief. It wasn't that she needed her face. She just wanted to make sure their couple life was more realistic in other people's eyes. Okay, I'll come tonight, Yimo said weakly and turned to leave. Chapter 32. Embarrassed Merciless Bing. Chapter 32. Embarrassed Merciless Bing. Yun Bing hadn't been to school during this period of time. She only remembered that night. After leaving the school, she wanted to buy something from the supermarket. However, on the way, she met a former classmate who appeared to have bought 2 bottles of drink and gave her one. Although she didn't want to associate much with him, he was too enthusiastic for her to reject and even helped her open the bottle. Then, she drank a few mouthfuls from the bottle and said a few words before leaving. But then, her head grew dizzy. Yun Bing wasn't usually that naive since she had already been independent in society for many years, but this situation still occurred. She immediately knew there was a problem with the drink her schoolmate gave her. Yun Bing wanted to scream but found out that she was getting dizzier and couldn't even yell. She didn't know what happened later on. Why did she wake up to see Yimo? Was Yimo conspiring with the schoolmate against her? Yun Bing's first thought was to report to the police and get the police to apprehend Yimo. But later, she checked herself and discovered that she wasn't sexually exploited, neither was there anything missing in her home. The only noticeable thing was the broken door. Thinking about how Yimo was still so young, Yun Bing sighed and let him go. However, she hated him in her heart. She just didn't know how Yimo knew that schoolmate of hers. However, when Yun Bing checked more carefully, she found signs of fighting and even a camera that was smashed to pieces. Were they fighting over who went on her first? Thinking about this, Yun Bing was angry and embarrassed at the same time. She had already decided to go to the school next day and ask Yimo exactly what happened. But the news she saw the second day made her decide not to ask Yimo. This was because the second day, she saw on the news that there were 2 men stripped nude and beaten into idiots who were left on the Genesis Square. Although it was pixelated, Yun Bing still felt this thing was weird. Yun Bing then searched the internet for news and immediately saw on some small websites that the 2 people who were stripped nude were actually Zheng Wenxiao and her former schoolmate that drugged her. Yun Bing immediately thought of Yimo and even suspected that Yimo did this. No matter what, Yun Bing felt satisfied that this former schoolmate of hers was beaten till he was dumb. She wasn't sure if Yimo did this, but even if he did, she wouldn't tell him off. However, Yimo wanted to take advantage of her, which made her hate him for it. As for why Yimo didn't do anything to her in the end, she knew clearly it was because he didn't have the ability to. But why would Yimo be in her room? And how was that schoolmate of hers beaten into an idiot? She couldn't think it through and therefore left the matter festering at the back of her mind. So that day, Yun Bing applied for leave for half a month before returning to the school. However, she didn't think that the first person she saw back at school was Yimo. Yimo just finished cultivating and was ready to find Shirxiu. That was when he saw Yun Bing walking into the school. Seeing Yun Bing, he couldn't help but recall that night when Yun Bing was nude and remembered her massive perky chest. Seeing Yimo, Yun Bing's anger immediately boiled up, and Yimo was staring at her with such eyes, making her angrier. Just thinking about how her naked body was seen by this guy made her really angry. Yimo, come over. Although Yun Bing's tone was calm, the anger under the calm tone was undeniable. Yimo didn't think that Yun Bing had discovered him that night and walked calmly in front of her as he said, "Teacher Yun, what's the matter?" Yun Bing didn't speak and just took him to a far-off place in the school. After walking for a while, Yimo felt something wasn't right. Could she have found out it was him that night? This wasn't possible. Yun Bing was always unconscious, and he kept his mask on. How could Yun Bing know it was him? Seeing that there was no one nearby, Yun Bing asked Yimo with a pale face, "Looks good, doesn't it?" "What looks good? The scene here is average?" Yimo suddenly had a bad feeling and hurriedly changed the topic. Suddenly, Yun Bing raised her hand and tried to slap Yimo across the face without any warning. Even if Yimo weren't alert of Yun Bing, she wouldn't have been able to connect her slap. Yimo grabbed Yun Bing's wrist and said coldly, "Teacher Yun, if you don't have anything to say, I'm leaving. If you dare to try to hit me again, then don't blame me for not reacting then, and I will make Ning Hai University Lake the place where you take a shower." After responding to her gesture, Yimo turned to leave. "Yimo, you shameless person." Seeing that Yimo turned to leave without hesitation, Yun Bing immediately swore. It was completely different to her normal cold attitude. However, Yimo didn't pay attention to her and was nowhere to be seen soon. Although Yun Bing was called Merciless Bing, she couldn't help but cry thinking about what Yimo did to her. After some while, she rubbed her sore red eyes and left. After Yun Bing had left, another girl popped out not far in the distance. She stared at Yun Bing's back in disbelief as she muttered to herself, "I didn't think that Yimo would even harass teachers. He really is filthy to the bones." Yimo was angry and didn't have the mood to go to the classroom to find Shirshio. Instead, he just left the school. He really shouldn't have taken the extra move to save her. He saved her, and yet she was still like this. "Yimo, you're back." Yimo opened the door to the yard, and Ning Qingxue walked over like a little bird as she grabbed his arm. Yimo raised his head to see that there was a tall and slim woman behind her. She was about the same age as Ning Qingxue and had long silky hair. Her eyes were very bright, which seemed to be able to talk as they scrutinized Yimo, and appeared mature and astute. "Yimo, let me introduce my friend. This is my schoolmate Zhou, and she came to Ning Hai just to see me. Zhou, this is my husband, Yimo." Ning Qingxue introduced hospitably. Only Ning Qingxue knew that if it weren't because she wanted everyone to realize she was Yimo's wife as soon as possible, she wouldn't even want to be socializing with other people. Zhou was a journalist, and obviously, Ning Qingxue knew of her intentions to come to see her. "Oh, hello, Miss Zhou." Yimo reached out his hand and shook it with Zhou. "Hello, Mr. Yi. You may call me Zhou, and I'll just call you Yimo as well." Zhou's smile was very professional. Zhou felt weird. She had heard of Yimo and also guessed like the people outside that this marriage was made to avoid the Song family. Furthermore, seeing their living place further consolidated her opinion. But now that she saw Yimo's calm manner, this was the first time she doubted her judgment. "Qingxue, since your friend came, you should have called me." "Oh right. Zhou, you still haven't eaten, right? Let's go and fill our stomachs first." "Zhou, I'm sorry, this place is a bit shabby. Qingxue had been suffering a little with me, but this is only temporary. I definitely won't let her suffer much longer." Yimo didn't have the time to waste with Ning Qingshue's schoolmate. He wasn't in a good mood. He just wanted to eat and shoo off this woman who was here to extract information. Chapter 33. The Person Who Sells Fake Medicine. Chapter 33. The person who sells fake medicine. Ning Qingxue heard Yimo call her Qingxue so casually while she was also holding Yimo's arm. At that moment, she even doubted if she had really become Yimo's wife. How did that feeling come so suddenly? She remembered that the day when she wore pajamas for Li Mumei's photo session, she seemed to be so immersed into the act. Thinking about that day, Ning Qingxue quickly pulled out her arm from Yimo's arm as her heart was still beating quickly. Each time she made physical contact with Yimo, She discovered that she was unable to retain that calm state and was even more astonished by the fact that she liked that soothing feeling. Yemo seemed to have something on him that she wanted to pursue. It was like an indescribable feeling of serenity and longing, but it was a bit ethereal at the same time. That attracted her like a moth to a flame. So the only thing she could do was to constantly remind herself what sort of a person Yemo was. Zhou saw Yemo's comfort and Ning Qingshue's leaning on him, as well as her faint blushes on her face, which made her doubt herself even more. Is Ning Qingxue really in love with Yemo, and the two married each other due to love and not something else? Let's go. Yemo saw Zhou was still lost in thought and reminded her of the reality. He didn't have any good impressions towards this woman who liked to invade other people's privacy. The three were each thinking of different things as they left the yard. In a place not far from their residence was a relatively large restaurant called Glamorous Cuisine and was a star restaurant. Ning Qingxue didn't want to go too far, so she pointed at Glamorous Cuisine and said to Yemo, "Yemo, I think this Glamorous Cuisine looks pretty good. Let's go there." "No, the food there is too expensive." Before Yemo finished his words, Ning Qingxue was already outraged. "Yemo, why do you need so much money for? We would only spend at most $1,000 at this restaurant." "You?" Ning Qingxue wasn't someone who liked showing off, but Yemo kept $500,000 and was being stingy with her schoolmate about going to a restaurant. Although she didn't really like this schoolmate either, it was still a schoolmate, and she was still a member of the Ning family. Yemo was bringing too much shame to her. Zhou looked at Yemo in surprise. It was her first time seeing someone so stingy over a meal, and this was in front of his own wife and her schoolmate. However, Ning Qingshue's admiration of him didn't seem to be fake. Seeing that Ning Qingxue was still going to say something else, Yemo was angry, but he wasn't someone with a narrow heart. He knew that if he got angry now, the show between him and Ning Qingxue would have been for nothing. He was going to leave Ning Hai soon, so there was no point in disputing a woman. Thinking about this, he hurried to say, "Okay, have it your way. Let's go here to eat today." Although he said that, he was depressed in his heart. He only had $3,000 in his pockets, and this was money earned from him selling his blood. Although the blood would have been wasted even if he didn't donate them, he still didn't want to use the money he acquired from selling blood to invite a woman whom he didn't like to dinner. Yemo had made his decision. After a few days, he would leave Ning Hai immediately. As for Ning Qingshue's matter, he had already helped out enough. He needed to find a stable place to plant his silver heartgrass. He already deeply understood that someone without a background like him would be meat on the chopping board in society if he didn't have enough power. The dinner was relatively pleasant. Although Zhou didn't get what she wanted, she could already tell that Yemo and Ning Qingshue's expenditure views were quite different. But from how Yemo was so stingy with money, she was further assured that Yemo was really living life with Ning Qingxue. From how Yemo used cash and not a card to pay for the meal, she could tell Yemo really wasn't living a wealthy life. Yemo was the most unhappy. This meal cost him $3,000. He even had to take out the 5s and 10s on him. If Ning Qingxue didn't have to order the $2,000 bottle of wine, this meal wouldn't cost that much. Although he drank most of the red wine, he was still unhappy. He knew Ning Qingxue did this on purpose. She gave him a credit card whose account was frozen, and yet she was still so cocky. Yemo almost threw the card at her to tell her to get the money herself. No wonder they say the people that are hated are also pitiful at the same time. Wasn't Ning Qingxue someone like that? After the meal, Zhou didn't stay and instead chose to bid them farewell. Perhaps it was because she saw Yemo using 5s and 10s to pay, but she wondered if he were showing her that he had no money or something like that. When Ning Qingxue and Yemo went back, they weren't as intimate as before. Ning Qingxue didn't want to talk to Yemo. She felt that Yemo had made her lose face today. Although she didn't really care about these things, Yemo paid with cash instead of his card, and even though she did intentionally order the red wine, but in the end, he drank it all by himself. Yemo didn't want to talk either. This dinner cost him more than $3,000. Now, he only had $20 remaining in his pocket. In the following days, if Yemo didn't go out to find work, he wouldn't even have money for food. Perhaps he really had to sell blood to get food, but it was impossible for him to do that in the long term. His situation wasn't that bad. Although the price he was paid for selling blood was the same as everyone else, Yemo believed his blood had better quality than others. He felt he was losing out with this price. Yemo's dishes were getting simpler and simpler. Although Qingxue wasn't fussy about food, she looked down on stingy people like Yemo. That night, Yemo carried his medical kit out. He didn't think that he had to go out to the night market ahead of schedule since Ning Qingxue came. Originally, he thought that he didn't need to do this anymore after curing the purple coral poison of the old man. But now, he walked on this path once again. However, what made Yemo disappointed was that, even if he had his stall set up in the busy streets of Ningdu Walking Street for 2 days, he didn't get even one person to do business with. Instead, he was even kicked by the city management once. Yemo barely went to Ninghai University. Firstly, he didn't want to see Yun Bing. Secondly, there was nothing he could learn there anymore. He originally planned to give a few medicinal pills he made to Shirxiu, but he had applied to leave for a week due to family issues. Although Ning Qingxue basically hadn't been talking to Yemo, she still saw what Yemo was doing. Her father had called her and told her not to worry. Even if he, Ning Zhongfei, were kicked out of the Ning family, he would not sell his daughter, especially to that demon from the Song family. Her father's words made Ning Qingxue feel more assured. Her parents already went to Beijing to settle things with the Ning family. 2 days after that, they would come to Ninghai and take her away. Ning Qingxue saw the pot Yemo left in the corridor to boil herbs, and her contempt towards Yemo gradually started to fade. What was the relationship between him and her? This was just a deal. She gave him $500,000, and that money was his. If he didn't want to spend money, that was his problem. Why should she be disappointed in this type of person? After thinking through this, Ning Qingxue seemed to feel better. Although he was very stingy, he still bought some vegetables home and cooked every day. Yemo carried his little case out again. Suwei still didn't come back. She didn't know whether or not if it was because Yemo and Suwei were living together that Ning Qingxue tried to avoid facing Suwei. As for what was her mentality, she didn't know. Perhaps it was to avoid awkwardness. Regardless of whether it was real or fake, she and Yemo were still husband and wife. The husband slept in the room of the woman next door. Even if they were fake couples, she didn't want to face that woman. Thinking about how she would leave here the day after tomorrow and probably never come back for her life. There was an unknown yet faint melancholy that rose in her heart. She knew this wasn't because of Yemo, but because of other reasons. Ning Qingxue walked out of her room for the first time. Perhaps she also wanted to see the place where she had lived for more than 20 days looked like. Mingdu Street was probably the most popular place at Ningdu District at night, and Ning Qingxue had unknowingly walked here already. Chapter 34. Young Master of the Song Family. Chapter 34. Young Master of the Song Family. Ning Qingxue sighed. Although $500,000 wasn't much for her, it should be quite a lot for Yemo. Yet he still wasn't satisfied as he had to come out to cheat people and actually proclaim that he could cure any disease. If he were so powerful, the world wouldn't need hospitals anymore. City management is here, someone called out. Many stall owners immediately started packing up their things and left. Ning Qingxue stared at Yemo, and as expected, Yemo packed up his things helplessly. However, he didn't run away hastily like the other stall owners. Instead, he packed up his things slowly and left. Although she didn't get to see Yemo scrambling away, she still got to see Yemo leave dejectedly, and this gave Ning Qingxue a sense of satisfaction. This is what you get for cheating people, she thought to herself. When Ning Qingxue returned to the yard, Yemo had already come back. He looked once at Ning Qingxue and didn't say anything. Ning Qingxue would of course not bother to talk to him either. She was wondering whether she should tell Suwei what sort of person he was before she left. His business didn't succeed, and he was kicked away by city management. Yemo was already sick of the days in Ninghai and wanted to leave. As for Ning Qingxue's business, he had already helped her enough. He would say goodbye to her tomorrow and leave. He didn't need to go to Ninghai University, but he still had to leave a letter behind for Shirxiu. When Suwei had already gone to sleep, Yemo started to cultivate. Young Master One, there is half an hour remaining before we arrive at Ninghai. Where shall we go first? A BMW was heading towards Ning Feng Highway at high speed while the driver was asking a youth that was younger than 30 in the backseat. The youth had a pale face and a pair of eagle eyes. His face was rather long and his hair perfectly combed. Hearing the driver's words, the youth just took out a cigarette while the big man sitting beside him quickly took out a lighter and lit up the cigarette for him. "Ah, Fa, did you finish the task I gave you?" The youth sucked on the cigarette and asked. "Yes, young master one. I left no traces," the bulky man replied. The youth inhaled the cigarette once again and stayed silent for some time before continuing. "We came from Yifeng just so that Grandpa and the people of the Ning family wouldn't be suspicious. If we go according to our original plan and stay one night in Ning Hai, something might happen, so we might as well just abduct that woman. This saves me from always thinking about her. I will let this be *tage know what regret truly is." Saying this, the initially calm youth was angered such that veins began to emerge from his clenched fist. He raised his hand and threw away the barely used cigarette. The robust man called Fa quickly picked it up and threw it out the window. "That useless man is called Yimo, right?" The youth gradually calmed down. Ever since the beginning, no one dared to reject him. Song Shaowen. He didn't think a mere Ning Qingxue would dare to reject him, and not just that, but she actually got married to another man, and they were even living together. This was slapping him across his face and his pride. If Song Shaowen could endure something like that, he wouldn't be Song Shaowen. If it wasn't for his grandfather who stopped him, he would have come to Ning Hai ages ago. This time, he changed routes at Yifeng before coming back to Ning Hai. "Yes, young master one, the useless man is called Yimo." The two did, in fact, sleep together. "I saw some pictures on some websites, and they seem to love each other a lot," the driver hurriedly said. Song Shaowen, who had already calmed down, immediately grew pale with rage again. He said coldly, "I will make this Yimo watch me and endure the torture when I show him how I sleep with that *t. Then, Yimo, right? We'll take him away. Isn't there a valley at Yinning Highway? We'll break his limbs and drop him from there. He's too weak to fight over my women." It was already 1 a.m., and Yimo finished one big cycle and 12 small cycles of cultivation. He wasn't going to cultivate anymore. He was leaving tomorrow and wanted to find a place to sleep. The stone block next to the flower pots was where he usually slept after cultivation. Just when Yimo laid down, a metal hook landed onto the wall as 3 figures quickly climbed over and jumped into the backyard. Although Song Shaowen had a pale face, his wall-flipping movements were agile. "This is where that useless trash Yimo lives, right? Which room is he sleeping in with Ning Qingxue, that *tsich? The pale-faced Song Shaowen asked as soon as he dropped to the ground. "This is where Yimo lives indeed, but he isn't a useless trash." A sudden voice was heard. Song Shaowen wasn't able to react to the first half, but he immediately turned his body to face Yimo for the second half of the sentence. After some time, he was full of shock and asked, "Who are you?" At the same time, the people behind Song Shaowen also saw Yimo. They all looked at him in shock and were tense and alert. "I am Yimo. Do you want me or my wife?" Yimo said calmly. "You are Yimo? Wang Chuan, Fa, break his legs. I want to see how this useless trash is so different that he could make that bitch willing to sleep with Hai." Before Song Shaowen finished his sentence, he discovered that his wrist was held tightly by an iron-like palm. "If you want to fight, that's fine, but I will crush your wrist first. Try me if you don't believe me." Yimo didn't want to fight here in case he alerted Su Wei. He knew that these people probably came for Ning Qingxue, but Su Wei was innocent. Looking at Song Shaowen, Wang Chuan and Fa immediately knew that their young master was in Yimo's hands, so they all stopped their movements. "Tell me, what's your name, trash?" Yimo used a little strength on his hands, and Song Shaowen almost screamed out. Sweat quickly emerged on his forehead. "I am Song Shaowen, from the Song family of Beijing. I didn't come here for you. I came here for Ning Qingxue. Release me immediately, or your Yi family. Or you, Yimo, will die nameless and shameful." Song Shaowen originally wanted to say that he was going to do something to the Yi family, but he realized that the Yi family was also a member of the 5 great families of Beijing, just like his own. They weren't afraid of the Song family, So he changed his words to Yemo. So that's it. However, your family is just a pile of trash in my eyes, so I'm not concerned at all. Ning Qingxue is my wife, and you dare to come find her? Are you deaf or are you blind? Now, Yemo used some more strength on his hands, and Song Shaowen finally had to cry out in pain. Yemo, we can talk, there's no need to fight. Wang Chuan said, seeing the situation was going in the wrong way. You drove here, right? Yemo suddenly asked something completely irrelevant. Yes, Wang Chuan replied helplessly as he didn't understand why Yemo would suddenly ask something irrelevant. Yemo nodded. In that case, we will discuss outside. Yemo wanted to leave, and since these few people drove here, it would be the perfect opportunity to take him along. It would save him the cost of traveling. Seeing Yemo take the initiative to go outside, Song Shaowen's two henchmen were obviously willing to. They initially thought that they couldn't fail this plan, but they would have never expected Yemo to be this strong. This was completely out of their expectations, and now, the matter had gone out of their control. What took Song Shaowen and the other two by surprise was that Yemo actually released Song Shaowen's wrist and just stared at the trio. Song Shaowen and his two henchmen looked at each other and nodded, thinking that Yemo really was a useless trash. His brain didn't seem to be functioning properly. The guy called Fa first went over the wall and leaped out. Then, Yemo also jumped over, with Song Shaowen and Wang Chuan closely following behind them. Song Shaowen was prepared to tell the other two to attack as soon as he reached the other side of the wall. However, he didn't even have the chance to land that the scene in front of them made them drop their jaws in shock. Chapter 35. Yemo didn't come back. Chapter 35. Yemo didn't come back. It was because they saw a fallen Fa sprawled on the ground, with Yemo stepping victoriously on his chest while staring coldly at him and Wang Chuan. He couldn't understand how Yemo subjugated Fa in a matter of milliseconds. Fa was his best henchman. However, Song Shaowen couldn't think anymore because before he even landed on the ground, Yemo flew over and kicked him. Crack! Song Shaowen's leg bones were broken by Yemo's kick. Arg! Song Shaowen immediately broke out in cold sweat. Wang Chuan shivered as he stared at Yemo's flying kick. What sort of person is he? His moves are so horrific. He is definitely a tough brick. Get into the car. Yemo's murderous eyes made Wang Chuan shiver. He didn't dare to resist and quickly climbed in. What made him grow numb with fear was that Yemo was able to carry Song Shaowen and Fa, one in each hand with him effortlessly, and followed behind him. Song Shaowen was in so much pain that he almost fainted. If he had another chance, he would rather be sworn at than come face to face with this demon called Yemo. Everyone else was used to call Shaowen a demon, but Song Shaowen himself had just realized that the true demon was Yemo, who pretended to be weak. When he tortured people, at least he had thoughts in his mind and expressions on his face. But when Yemo broke his leg, it was as though it was something as simple as stepping on an ant. His eyes didn't even blink, much less betray any expression. The car wasn't far away, only a few hundred meters away. Song Shaowen was used to choose small roads to park on so that he wouldn't be seen by others. Besides, it was 2 a.m., there was no one on the streets, so these few people went into the BMW unimpeded. Yemo dumped Song Shaowen and Fa on the backseat and took all their cash. Then, he sat in the seat beside the driver, saying, "Drive to Guilin." Guilin was the intersection between China and a few other small countries. This place was in the mountains and didn't have many people. This was perfect for Yemo's cultivation. Plus, even if people found out he killed Song Shaowen, it was extremely hard to try to capture him there. What, Guilin? Wang Chuan was shocked. Guilin was almost 1,000 km from Ninghai. How could they drive over there? No **T, just drive. Yemo ordered, making Wang Chuan gulp down the words. He could only quickly start up the BMW and rapidly disappear from the range of Ninghai City. When the car drove for an hour or so, Yemo suddenly remembered that his little medical case was still in the corridor of the room. However, if he went back to get it now, it would probably become dawn. So he abandoned the idea. There were only some soup, pills, a letter, and some miscellaneous things. Not only was Song Shaowen depressed, But Afa and Wang Chuan were also humbled and dejected. It was usually them who taught people lessons, but today, not only were they taught a lesson by the supposed useless trashy Mo, but they had also been robbed of their money. Young Master Mo, it is my fault to have wronged you this time. But I think you know the power of the Song family. If something were to happen to me, you would never be able to escape. But if you are willing to let me go, I won't mistreat you any further. Song Shaoan started to soften and beg for mercy. He felt this Mo was a fierce character, far fiercer than him. But before he finished his words, slap, slap, Mo slapped twice Song Shaoan hard before slowly saying, "Stop bullsh ting in front of me. It would be to your benefit if your Song family didn't mess with me. If they did, I'd erase their name from Beijing. Mo, will do as I say, but perhaps you won't get the chance to see it." You! Song Shaoan spat out 2 teeth and was shaking. It was unknown if he was shaking out of anger or fear, but this time, Song Shaoan was really scared. From Mo's words, it seemed as though Mo was going to take his life. Although he didn't believe Mo would dare to, he only had one life after all. If regrets were of any use, he would have done it thousands of times already. After another hour or so, Mo looked ahead at the highway wrapped precariously around the tall mountain and thought to himself, "It's almost dawn. If he pushed the car off the cliff here, it would be the most suitable idea. He wasn't really going to get this car to drive him to Guilin. That would be asking to die." Thinking about this, Mo saw a camera far away. He suddenly bowed down and pulled on the wheel. Wang Chuan, who was still thinking on how to alert the police, didn't expect Mo to duck his body and turn his wheel so suddenly. The vehicle had a sudden big turn and charged off the highway, falling down the cliff. The moment the car started plummeting, Mo kicked open the door and used his wind-controlling technique to glide to the wall of the cliff, sticking closely to it. He had to be in the 3rd stage of Qi gathering to be able to utilize the wind-controlling technique to its full potential, but Mo was only in the 2nd stage now, so he had difficulty using it. However, it was enough for him to save his life. The BMW fell off the cliff, and after a short moment, a loud explosion sounded, and a swirl of fire erupted. Mo was relieved. He was still thinking that if the car didn't burn, he would have to go down and do it himself, but he didn't think the car would so obediently burn by itself. Mo carefully avoided the cameras and went into the forest, quickly disappearing into the night. Ning Qingxue got up in the morning. Sue had already gone to work, but what made her curious was that Mo didn't buy breakfast for her that morning. She also didn't see Mo, and this made her unhappy. Last time, she just brought a schoolmate for dinner, but in the end, not only was the food quality had decreased, but now she didn't even get breakfast. Even if she spent $2,000 for a bottle of red wine, the red wine was drunk all by him anyway. Luckily, she was leaving one day later. Otherwise, she had this indescribable repulsion each time she saw Mo. Sometimes, one couldn't just rely on their first impression. After all, other people's opinions weren't formed from thin air. However, what made Ning Qingxue disappointed was that she still didn't see Mo at noon. Suddenly, she realized that she had become overly dependent on Mo. If Mo didn't come back, would she not eat? Since nobody from the Song family came to bother her, Ning Qingxue did feel a lot more relieved, and soon she was going to leave Beijing with her parents, which made her feel even better. After lunch, Ning Qingxue suddenly looked at Mo's flower pots. It seemed that they hadn't been managed for more than 10 days. Some flowers had even died. However, Ning Qingxue discovered that the one especially taken care of by Mo with a silver color had disappeared. Ning Qingxue suddenly felt annoyed and wanted to call Li Mu Mei, but her phone suddenly rang. "Qingxue, I have great news for you. Did you know, last night around 4 a.m., Song Shaoan's car fell off a cliff at Fengjin Highway. Song Shaoan and his 2 henchmen who were in the car all died. Now, you can relax. No one will come to bother you ever again. I'll come and pick you up tomorrow." Li Mu Mei's joyful voice made Ning Qingxue feel like she was dreaming. After a long time, she finally hung up the phone. She still couldn't believe that the demon in her dreams had died, and she was relieved. Ning Qingxue let out a long sigh of relief. Her first instinct was to go into the room and take out her marriage certificate with Mo. So when he came back, she could divorce him. This afternoon must have been the longest afternoon for Ning Qingxue. Yimo, who usually came back early to cook, still didn't come back at 8 p.m. However, Su Wei came back from work. This was the first time Su Wei came back from work to see Ning Qingxue, not in her room but waiting outside. However, she didn't see Yimo. You were Su Wei, right? Ning Qingxue said hesitantly. Chapter 36. It should be by Yimo. Chapter 36. It should be by Yimo. Su Wei nodded. Yeah, did Yimo told you? Actually, I don't even know your name yet. I'm Ning Qingxue. I wanted to ask if you knew where Yimo went. Why has he still not come back today? In Ning Qingxue's eyes, Yimo and Su Wei were living together. Su Wei would definitely know where Yimo was. Yimo? I haven't seen him for 2 days. Isn't he with you? Su Wei said, intrigued. Meanwhile, she thought, your boyfriend disappeared? Why are you asking me? With me? Ning Qingxue was as intrigued as Su Wei. She noticed something different. Things didn't seem to be the way she thought them to be. Then, she looked at Su Wei's expression so she could only say, you are his girlfriend? Isn't he living with you? Hearing Ning Qingxue's words, Su Wei blushed and was a bit annoyed. But Ning Qingxue was so beautiful, and her temperament was obviously not that of a normal woman, so she couldn't really throw a fit. However, she replied coldly, since when was I his girlfriend? This is really weird. You are living with him in the same room every day, and you say I am his girlfriend. This is too out of this world. What? Yimo doesn't stay with you at night? Ning Qingxue asked in surprise. As if discerning Ning Qingxue wasn't lying on purpose, Su Wei replied, I am only renting the same house with him. We don't know each other that well. Wasn't he living with you? Ning Qingxue already knew. She must have misunderstood Yimo. However, if Yimo wasn't living with him and didn't live with Su Wei, where would he be living? It should be the hotel. He had quite some money now. Oh, he should be living in the hotel. It's just that he ran off somewhere today. Ning Qingxue was a bit embarrassed thinking that she misunderstood Yimo. Live in the hotel? Not possible. I wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning, and each morning, he would be in the backyard. Su Wei stopped her words at that moment. If she continued, it would be making it clear that Ning Qingxue was living with Yimo, and since she didn't want to admit it to herself, why bother saying it? Su Wei, who suddenly stopped talking, felt embarrassed and said, perhaps he really is living in the hotel. I have some things to attend to, so I'm going in. Of course, Ning Qingxue knew what Su Wei was thinking and went hurriedly to Su Wei while she said awkwardly, sorry, Su Wei, I really didn't stay with him. But how could he be in the yard at 5 or 6 a.m. each morning? Su Wei found this series of events funny, but she saw that Ning Qingxue didn't seem like she was lying and frowned her eyes, thinking that this was too absurd. It made people have chill thinking about it. Is Yimo? She didn't dare to keep thinking about it. As if suddenly remembering something, Su Wei suddenly said, the landowner has installed a camera at the front and the back. The control center is a computer placed in the storage room. I'll show it to you. Ning Qingxue heard that there was a camera and hurriedly followed Su Wei into that storage room full of boxes which was at the corner of the living room. Ning Qingxue had stayed here for so long and did not know that there was another storage room. There was a surveillance computer inside, but it was full of dust and the power was switched off. The two switched on the screen and saw the 2 surveillance windows. One was facing the front door and another was at the back. It seemed that the landowner was quite meticulous. They opened the recent surveillance recording. The camera facing the front door showed that Yimo went out early each morning, but it didn't show Yimo going out at night. However, when the 2 people switched the camera to the back, they immediately found out Yimo had been sitting under the tree for the whole night. Other than occasionally sleeping under the rainproof tent on the stone floor for a few hours, most of his time was spent laying on the tree. He had been sleeping on the tree? Ning Qingxue and Su Wei looked at each other in shock. Su Wei and Ning Qingxue both had the same thought. What happens during the rainy days? A week ago, there was a pouring rain. They hurried to change the date to that rainy day, but what shocked them was, Yimo was still sitting under the tree. However, the rain seemed to have formed a barrier around Yimo. The 2 couldn't see that clearly and thought there was a problem with the camera. However, an hour later, Emo left the tree and slept on the stone floor. Sue was an emotional girl, and after seeing that Emo didn't even have a place to live at night, she immediately felt some disgust towards Ning Qingxue. Her tears fell, thinking that Emo was pitiful. Even if this girl was pretty, she couldn't just do that to Emo. What a fox demon. Wiping her tears, Sue glanced at Ning Qingxue. She didn't want to stay with this woman anymore. She just turned and left the storage room without saying anything. When Sue walked out of the storage room, Ning Qingxue understood that Sue had some enmity towards her. She could feel and see it plainly. However, now she was still staring at Emo, who slept on the stone floor. She suddenly felt some pain in her heart, but it wasn't sadness like Sue. He had that much money. Why didn't he go to the hotel? Why did he stay under the tree night after night? Even if he did sleep under the tree, he should come under the roof when it was raining. Plus, even if he wanted to live in the same room with me, I wouldn't have disagreed. I was the one coming to live in the same room as Emo. Thinking about how Sue was crying, Ning Qingxue felt her heart was a bit hard. She just felt Emo was too much of a cheapskate. Although she didn't feel good, she only thought of one sentence. Those who are hated have pitiful aspects. She didn't know Emo thought of her this way too. She sighed and thought, was he so stingy because he was too poor before? Although she felt touched by Emo moving out his room for her, she felt that it was more because she gave $500,000 to Emo. The camera was switched on the previous night, and Emo was still standing under the tree for half the night, and around 1 a.m., he had gone to sleep on the stone floor. But the following scene almost made Ning Qingxue scream. Song Shaowen sneakily jumped over the wall with 2 henchmen. Ning Qingxue suddenly remembered Li Mumei's phone call. Didn't Song Shaowen die already? Why was he here last night? Thinking about this, Ning Qingxue felt goosebumps on her head, but the following scenes made her completely understand the situation. Emo, who was sleeping on the stone floor, just spoke a few words with Song Shaowen in them. Then, Song Shao and his 2 henchmen took Emo away. The scenes afterward returned to nothing. She couldn't hear the conversation between Emo and Song Shaowen. Ning Qingxue had already understood. It seemed like Emo and Song Shaowen reached some sort of agreement and just left like that. Normally, if Song Shaowen came here, how could he leave without abducting her? What happened? Song Shaowen actually found his way here. This really was insane. Ning Qingxue felt scared just thinking about it. If it wasn't for Emo, what would have happened? She didn't dare to think. Song Shaowen's car fell off the cliff. Did anything happen to Emo? Ning Qingxue could no longer hold her worry in as she picked up the phone to call Li Mumei. Mumei, you said Song Shaowen and 2 of his men died. Was there anyone else in the car? This was what Ning Qingxue wanted to know the most. Although Emo took $500,000 from her, Ning Qingxue couldn't accept it if Emo lost his life because of the money. Plus, these men came for her. Emo was innocent. No, what's wrong? There were only the 3 of them in the car. This was verified. The Song family is in turmoil right now. Qingxue, don't think too much. I'll come stay with you tomorrow, Li Mumei comforted her. After hanging up, Ning Qingxue still didn't feel appeased. There was no way she could let anyone see the video recording here. Thinking about this, Ning Qingxue hurried and took her USB and copied the clips, while deleting it from the computer. Only then did she feel a little better. However, another thought hit her. What if the Song family knew that Song Shaowen came to Ninghai? If they were to investigate, this clip could still be recovered. Ning Qingxue was stuck, not knowing what to do. She was already certain that Song Shaowen's death should be related to Emo. However, Song Shaowen's car fell into the cliff at Fengjin Highway. The Song family shouldn't be able to find out about this place. Chapter 37. Sorry Emo. Chapter 37. Sorry Emo. When Ning Qingxue left the storage room and didn't see Sue, she knew that Sue had a bad opinion of her and had left in a huff. Am I really a bad woman, though? Ning Qingxue asked herself but couldn't find the answer. 'Twas a sleepless night, and when she got up the next morning, Sue had already gone to work. Qingxue quickly packed her belongings before staring at the pot at the corner of the room, losing herself in thought. Emo often used that pot to cook some herbs. Was he really using those stuff to cheat people at Bushing Street? She then set her eyes on a black bag. She knew that bag had Yimo's little chest inside. It was all the stuff he used to sell fake medicine. Just when Ning Qingxue held up the bag, the front doorbell had sounded. She opened the door and saw that it was Li Mumei that had come. Li Mumei scanned the house and didn't find Yimo, so she asked curiously, "Where's Yimo?" "He went out yesterday and hadn't been back since," Ning Qingxue answered subconsciously. "Oh, I brought a bank card over. Regardless of whether he wants it or not, we still need to give him some money, right? After all, we used him for so long. Anyway, your parents are picking you up at U State. They won't be coming to Ninghai, so we'll go to U State to meet up with them," Li Mumei said casually. Ning Qingxue shook her head and said, "Oh, no need to give him any money. I already gave a card with $500,000 to him. I think that should be enough as payment." "Where did you get 500,000? Li Mumei looked at Ning Qingxue in surprise and asked. "Of course, from when we left Beijing. It was the one you made for me last time," Ning Qingxue replied. "Huh, that card is useless. They froze it the day we left Beijing. I only knew afterward and forgot to tell you." Li Mumei looked at Ning Qingxue helplessly. Ning Qingxue was dazed for a long while before mumbling, "Useless card? So all this time, I have been using his money? No wonder he was stingy. So it was like that. Qingxue, what are you talking about?" Li Mumei saw Ning Qingxue was lost in thought, and her voice wasn't very loud either, so she hurriedly asked, "I?" Ning Qingxue suddenly thought of something and immediately moved. She picked up Yimo's bag and took out the little medical case and opened it quickly. There were 7 or 8 bottles, a packet of silver needles, and an identity card. The card she gave him was also there. There were also a few charms that had weird drawings on it. Lastly, there was a letter that didn't have the receiver name on it. Ning Qingxue took the card as her hands started to shake. If there were a hole in the ground she could crawl into, she would do it without hesitation. She had always thought that Yimo was using her money, while she even asked $2,000 from him without any hesitance. She ate and lived here without any burden on her heart. Only today, she knew how ridiculous she was. She had always been using Yimo's money, but why didn't he say anything? No wonder he was hesitating on going to glamorous cuisine that day. When he was paying the bills, he even took out the 5s and 10s. What was more ridiculous was that she actually purposely ordered a $2,000 bottle of wine. There was also a stack of receipt at the bottom of the case. Ning Qingxue took out those folded receipts and just felt her head buzzing. Her face immediately became pale, and she almost fell to the ground. "Qingxue, what happened?" Li Mumei hurriedly held Ning Qingxue up. Ning Qingxue took that stack of receipt and stuffed it into the case hurriedly. Then, she turned and said to Li Mumei, "Mumei, could you wait for me outside?" Ning Qingxue ran into the room and shut the door. "Qingxue, what's wrong? You're crying?" Li Mumei stood in front of the closed door and was also dumbfounded. She clearly saw Ning Qingxue's tears. In all her memory, Ning Qingxue had never cried, no matter how sad the matter was. She never cried, not once. However, today Ning Qingxue cried. What happened to her? What made her so sad? Ning Qingxue sat by the bedside and opened Yimo's case once again. Stacks of blood, selling receipts appeared in front of her. The most recent one was a few days before her schoolmate had come. Yimo was selling blood, but she asked for $2,000 and was forced to eat a $3,000 meal at glamorous cuisine. One meal there cost multiple times what he received from selling blood. Yet she was there laughing at him for becoming stingier and even complaining that the food he prepared was getting worse. Why did he never complain in front of her? Was it due to contempt, or just simply not wanting to? What sort of man was this? What sort of man could do this? Was this really the good-for-nothing trash that was kicked out of the Yi family? If the broadest thing in this world was the ocean, then now, in Ning Qingxue's eyes, Yimo's heart was immeasurably broader than the ocean. But in his eyes now, what sort of a person was she? Heartless? Indifferent? Unreasonable? Ning Qingxue's tears fell rapidly on the blood-selling receipt as the words on it began to smudge. It was as though she was going to shed her 22 years of tears all at once here. However, she couldn't stop the regret, remorse, and sadness from charging and flowing out of her heart. Come and have a look at a recipe passed down from the ancestor. It can cure all sorts of diseases, headaches, fever, external and internal injuries, short-sightedness. There are only things you can't think of, but nothing I can't cure. Yimo's promotion voice seemed to still be by her ear. However, he was nowhere to be seen. How ridiculous that at the time she still had a golden cake in her hands, hoping that the city management would kick him away. Ridiculous? His voice sounded ridiculous at the time, but now, she just felt terrible. Perhaps the golden cake in her hands at the time was bought by the money Yimo got from selling blood. However, she held the cake while hiding in the corner, laughing at his shamelessness and ignorance. Ignorant? When Yimo paid for the bills after that dinner, she was actually embarrassed for Yimo taking out 5s and 10s, yet at this moment, Ning Qingxue suddenly hated herself so much. Bang bang. The door sounded with Li Mumei's banging. However, Ning Qingxue didn't hear anything. She only heard Yimo's words reverberating in her mind. No, the food there is too expensive. We would only spend at most $1,000 at this restaurant, was her reply at the time. Only $1,000. But how many times did Yimo had to go to the hospital for $1,000? He was only a student. Other than selling blood to the hospital, where else could he get money from? Ning Qingxue subconsciously took out the $2,000 Yimo gave her. There were only a few $100s left. Ning Qingxue, who had always thought money was dirty, for the first time caressed the money in her hands, feeling pain in her heart. He had been sleeping under the tree in the backyard and on the stone floor because he had no money to go outside and live. Why could Su Wei think of it as because Yimo was trying to save money but she couldn't? I'm so sorry, Yimo. Chapter 38. The Woman Who Got Off Midway. Chapter 38. The woman who got off midway. Ning Qingxue rubbed her swollen red eyes and picked up that anonymous letter. She knew this letter wasn't for her. She wanted to open it, but at the last moment held up that urge. She carefully packed up Yimo's things and put them in a case before opening the door. Qingxue, what happened to you? Li Mumei saw Ning Qingxue with swollen eyes and immediately knew in her heart that she was right. Ning Qingxue really was crying, and she seemed sorrowful as well. What's inside that case? Li Mumei looked with curiosity at the case Ning Qingxue was hugging. Ning Qingxue's change must have been due to this box. She really wanted to know what sort of box made Ning Qingxue, who had never cried, so pitiful. That's my stuff. Ning Qingxue shook her head and didn't give the chest to Li Mumei. Li Mumei shook her head and said, Qingxue, the things here have been settled. Let's go. Today, we'll go and do the proceedings for the divorce, then we'll go straight to you state. I don't think your father and his big brother had a very nice negotiation. We don't need to go Beijing anymore. Ning family medical materials may be split in half now. Mumei, I want to wait another 2 days. Perhaps Yimo might come back, and I don't want a divorce right now. Ning Qingxue shook her head and refused Li Mumei's suggestion. Why? Li Mumei looked at Ning Qingxue in surprise. She really couldn't understand how before, Ning Qingxue couldn't wait for her to take her away, but now, she suddenly changed and even wanted to live here for an extra 2 days. What was this? What was so good about this place? Ning Qingxue shook her head and didn't answer. She was wondering when Yimo was going to come back. The original Yimo in her heart didn't seem to be the real Yimo at all. However, when did she ever try to get to know him? Whether it was before or after they got married, she didn't care about this person at all. Even the first time they met was a means to her own selfish ends. Li Mumei didn't question Ning Qingxue further as she knew that it was useless to ask something Ning Qingxue didn't want to say. When Su Wei came back at night, for the first time Ning Qingxue asked about Yimo. Although Su Wei didn't really like Ning Qingxue, she still told her about what happened ever since Yimo came here. Ning Qingxue didn't think Yimo's life was so simple. He just went out and came back each day. Perhaps Su Wei didn't even know he was a student. Yimo left Chinon Cliff at night. Although he wasn't scared of the Song family, his powers were still too weak. If the Song family managed to find out that he killed Song Shaowen and set traps for him, he wouldn't be able to find a stable place to grow his silver heartgrass, much less cultivate. Furthermore, It was only a matter of time before the Song family would find out that Song Shaowen's death was related to him. So, he was forced not to be found by the Song family, at least within 3 years. Yimo used his cloud shadow steps to travel, and his speed wasn't lower than an ordinary car. At around 6 a.m., he had already arrived at the Fengtang town. This was Fengkou City's medium-sized town. Yimo found a little hotel and wanted to go in to wash when he realized that he didn't even have his identity papers with him. However, small hotels didn't necessarily require them, and Yimo knew that without his identity papers, it was obviously not suitable to live in the city. To avoid suspicion, Yimo carried a backpack with only daily necessities inside. There was some food as well as a few $1,000s which were all scavenged from Song Shaowen and his henchmen. Now, he just wanted to go to the mountain districts of Guilin, find a stable place to settle down and cultivate near the border of the country. Standing outside the gas station at Fengtang town, Yimo was troubled. If he left using a car, there was a great chance that he would be exposed since he had no identity papers with him, and there were many traffic police patrol that would stop long-distance buses to check identities. It would be better to go by train, yet there wasn't a single train station at Fengtang town. "Friend, are you going anywhere? Do you need a ride?" A 30-or-so-year-old man walked over and asked. Yimo had carried his backpack and stood out at the gas station for a long time. He was probably noticed by people, and they immediately came over to see if they could start a business. Yimo could tell with one glance that these people were doing illegal transport. It was probably to escape taxes or something similar. Usually, people wouldn't want to take these cars, but some people still chose to take these illegal cars to save money because it was cheaper. However, Yimo liked this type of transport because these cars would usually take off-routes in the forest instead of highways. This way, they could avoid a lot of trouble. "Where does your car go?" Yimo asked casually. "Chi City, $55. How about it? Does that pass where you need to go?" The man asked full of hope. Yimo knew Chi City. Although it was a bit far from where he wanted to go, it was in the right direction. No wonder there were illegal transport markets here. Yimo had already seen on the electronic screen that it was $95 to go to Chi City. Meanwhile, these people only asked for $55. It was almost half the price. Yimo nodded. "Okay, lead the way." "Black skin. I brought another one. $55 to Chi City." This man brought Yimo in front of a big bus and yelled, "It's this one, just go on." The man told Yimo to go on the vehicle and left to continue grabbing customers. So, he wasn't the driver, but someone to help to grab customers. Yimo didn't mind. When he got on the bus, there were around 30 or so people. Yimo went to find a seat at the back and sat down. He closed his eyes and meditated for a while. A few more people got on until a woman attracted Yimo's attention. She wore a golden-framed glasses. Although she wasn't very pretty, she wasn't ugly either. However, she looked rather bulky. Her voluptuous body was also quite stunning. What made Yimo notice her wasn't her hot body but her killer's chi. Although she seemed like a normal person on the surface, she had this killer's chi that Yimo felt as soon as she got on the car. However, her glasses didn't match her temperament at all, and he wondered if she was pretending to be a civilian. This woman had killed people before, and not just one. As soon as she got on the bus, she immediately attracted a lot of attention. A few youth even scanned their eyes across this woman's chest and buttocks as they swallowed their saliva. For this type of women, you didn't even need to look at her face. Just her body was enough to conquer any man. The woman scanned the car with her eyes, as if not noticing these lewd glances. She scanned everyone, including Yimo. Her eyes were sharp, but not arrogant, which showed that this was a woman with a story. Yimo closed his eyes. He was also someone with a story. There were too many people in this world with a story. Why bother about others? This was the season for long-distance travel, and the bus probably couldn't get any more people. Although there were less than 40 people on the bus still moved. After going for about half an hour, someone came to collect money. Yimo gave the transport fee and continued to close his eyes to meditate. Although they weren't going on the highway, the car was still relatively stable. According to the driver, it would take around 4 hours to get to Chi City. Now they had gone for about 2 hours. It should be more than halfway. "Driver, stop the bus." I'm getting off here. A sudden voice resounded. Lady, this is the Xiangli Mountain District. There's not even a hotel here. If you get off the driver reminded her out of goodwill. However, his words were stopped halfway by this woman. That's my business. Please stop the bus. Chapter 39. Such a powerful woman. Chapter 39. Such a powerful woman, there's no other way here other than this road. If you enter the mountain here, you would be reaching the Guixiang mountain range. Although there are a few tourist spots, it is mostly primitive forests. If you get off here, there really is nowhere to go. A good-hearted middle-aged man said in the car. The woman stayed silent for a moment and went back to her seat again. It was unknown if it was because she felt that this middle-aged man was right, or if it was something else. However, Yimo's heart was moved. Although it wasn't good for anyone else to get off here, it was good for him. He knew about the Guixiang mountain range. Its expanse went through the 3 provinces of Huzhong, Xianghuai, and Guinan and was named after one of the 3 greatest mountain ranges of China. Guinan province was at the border between China and Vietnam, and the place where he wanted to go, Guilin, was the southernmost city of Guinan province. If he wanted to go there by car, he had to keep changing vehicles at Huzhong, Xianghuai, and Guinan, but he didn't have his identity papers, which would increase his chances of being exposed. If he left from the Guixiang mountain range by himself, it was much safer despite it taking more time. Besides, there were a lot of trains passing by the Guixiang mountain ranges. Perhaps he could try to get on one, but even if he didn't, there was no pressure for him, since he was able to cultivate while he walked. Driver, stop. I'm getting off. My friend's car is coming, said Yimo as he walked to the front. Not only was the driver stunned, but the people on the bus were too. Even the woman looked at Yimo curiously. The reason she didn't get off wasn't that this was the wilderness or in the middle of nowhere, but because she was scared that people would get suspicious of her and spread the word. After all, a woman getting off the bus in the wilderness was very unexpected. Just when she wanted to find a good reason to get off the vehicle, someone actually also said they wanted to leave, which suited her perfectly. The driver didn't say anything this time. Saying that there was another car coming obviously meant that he didn't want to take the bus anymore. The bus stopped, and Yimo got off first, followed by that woman. However, what surprised everyone was that there were another 2 men that got off afterward. Everyone realized that those 2 got off because of Yimo and the woman. Nevertheless, the driver didn't dare to mind others' business and immediately started the bus, quickly disappearing at the corner. As for why that woman got off the car, Yimo understood that she already had the intention to leave when she had expressed herself earlier. However, he didn't understand why the 2 men behind also got off the car. It didn't take long for him to figure out their intention as the 2 men had circled the woman. One of them glared at Yimo and said, "Punk, if you want to live a few extra days, hurry up and piss off. There's no business for you here." Yimo had stumbled upon a case of robbery, which made him want to laugh. Although these 2 men looked tough, Yimo was sure they weren't a match for the woman. This woman stared coldly at the 2 men who approached her, but didn't say a word. "Little girl, take out your money. Don't try to tell me you don't have any. I saw it when you picked up the phone. There should be more than 10,000. Hee, we were planning on robbing the bus, but since you have that much money on you, we might as well just rob you." The man who told Yimo to piss off turned to stare strangely at this woman. Yimo smiled. He didn't even want to bother himself with these sort of things since both parties weren't good people. "Wait." Just when Yimo was about to leave, the woman suddenly called. "What?" Yimo turned his head and asked plainly. Seeing that Yimo wasn't worried at all, this woman scanned Yimo again with a look of surprise. However, she really couldn't notice anything abnormal about Yimo. This person was so normal and average. Even his Vans, shoes, were as ordinary as it could be, which made her believe that Yimo really had a mental problem. "Help me out with something and later." This ferocious yet busty woman suddenly smiled and took off her glasses. Her face suddenly became lively with this smile. This was the first time Yimo saw such a significant change in a face just because of a smile. It was as though she became 2 different people. "I don't like fighting." Before the woman finished the latter half of the sentence, Yimo had already refused. Haha. The woman was dazed for a moment and actually started laughing. She continued, I don't need you to fight. I want you to help me bury these two in the trees later. The two men who were surrounding the woman were originally looking at EMO fiercely. When they saw that EMO didn't leave immediately and wasn't scared, they instantaneously became vigilant toward him. Usually, people would run away if they saw someone getting robbed, so they had rarely seen someone who was fearless like him. However, when they heard that this woman was asking EMO to bury them, the taller man could no longer hold it as he grabbed his knife, piercing towards the woman's chest. Crack. Arg. Two sounds. Yet the man with the knife was already on the ground. The other shorter man hadn't even reacted, but EMO saw it clearly. The woman quickly grabbed the tall man's wrist and pushed it upward when the man pierced the knife toward her chest. At the same time, she knocked the back of the knife with her hand, which flew right into the tall man's throat. Such a powerful woman. This whole set of moves was only a few breaths' time. If EMO wasn't at the second stage now, he wouldn't even be able to see it. EMO thought that if it was at the time when he was still at the first stage, and he had to fight this woman, then the odds would have been unpredictable. In other words, he wondered what would have happened if he had a conflict with this woman a month before and what the result would have been. EMO didn't like this sense of threat. The only way was to continually get stronger. The shorter man finally woke up to the situation. Although it was just a few breaths of time, he had already understood that they had met someone too powerful for them this time, and without a second thought, he turned and started to run. However, the woman suddenly kicked the knife that was still inside the tall man's throat. Then with another kick on the back of the knife, send it toward the fleeing man whose heart got immediately pierced through from the back. You have guts. I didn't ask you to help me fight them and, as you can see, you don't need to anymore. You just need to help me bury these two people in the forest, and all of their money is yours. The woman suddenly smiled at EMO once again. What if these two people don't have money on them? EMO asked plainly. The woman was stunned for a moment. She didn't think that EMO was still considering this problem right now. A normal person would have done what she asked ages ago. They wouldn't dare to argue. If there isn't money, then this is yours. The woman reached into her bag and pulled out a stack of notes, keeping only around half of it, and gave the rest to EMO. EMO casually took the notes. He saw that it was probably around $10,000 at the start, but the woman kept some, so there was only around $4,000 or $5,000 left, which was still really generous of her. EMO, who needed money at this moment, smiled and said, Fine, it's a deal. After saying that, he just dragged the two men laying on the ground into the forest. Watching EMO going so casually into the forest as well as the ease with which he pulled the body, there was a sliver of approval in the woman's eyes as she muttered to herself, He has good strength and courage. It's just that he doesn't look manly enough. Chapter 40. Making money seems to be really easy. Chapter 40. Making money seems to be really easy. When EMO was dragging the two bodies into the forest, he searched them but didn't find anything good. Only around $1,000 cash on the bodies. As for their card, EMO didn't want it at all. However, that knife seemed passable and looked very sharp, so EMO took it as a trophy. With a few fireball techniques, he burned these two into a black ball of crisp but couldn't burn them completely into nothingness. EMO sighed. His fireball technique was too low caliber. If he were at the third stage, one fireball would have been enough to make them completely disappear. With a casual movement of his palm, he made a big pit and kicked the two bodies inside. Then, he used another palm to push some dirt in. He had never buried the people that he had killed. However, this time he received a few $1,000s to do it, so he might as well act like a hired laborer. After EMO had taken care of these two robbers, he didn't go back and instead went straight to the mountains. You, wait up. The woman waited a while at the road, but since she still didn't see EMO come back, she immediately ran into the forest and found that EMO actually went farther in. She was barely able to see his back, and if she had been a little slower, EMO would have probably been nowhere to be seen already. EMO heard the woman's yell and stopped. Seeing him stop, the woman was really shocked. In her eyes, EMO left because he was scared of her. Therefore, when he heard her voice, He should have run as fast as possible. However, he actually stopped. She wanted to believe Emo stopped because he was scared of her, but she knew that Emo wasn't. He didn't seem scared in the slightest. "You're not afraid of me?" The woman walked up to Emo and asked. Emo pulled the bag on his shoulders and smiled plainly. "Are you going to kill me?" "No, you didn't offend me. I don't like killing people." The woman subconsciously shook her head. "Oh, since you won't kill me, why should I be scared?" Emo asked as if things seemed weird for him. The woman looked at Emo again. He was an ordinary youth that was decent-looking and looked clean and white. He wore tidy clothes and even looked like a student. He was probably only a little over 20 and didn't give her any signal of danger. She had escaped from death countless times, which left her with an unerring, natural instinct about people's strengths close to her own, and obviously, Emo wasn't. "You are very bold. But if you're not scared of me, why are you running into the mountain? This mountain is your home? Can I go inside?" This woman fumbled for words. Although Emo's words were a bit aggressive, she didn't get angry. Instead, she smiled. "Okay, you're right. Let's get to know each other. I'm Wendong, one for hearing, Dong for winter." Emo. Emo simply said his name. Seeing that Emo didn't talk anymore, Wendong also didn't talk and started to lead the way. Although it was the mountain ranges here, Wendong was strangely light-stepped and didn't seem to struggle at all. She was afraid that Emo couldn't keep up and intentionally traveled slowly. However, she discovered that Emo's stamina was really good, and he didn't have any signs of having trouble to keep up with her, which surprised her. If it wasn't that Emo didn't look like someone who practiced martial arts and for his elegant long white hands, Wendong would probably have suspected Emo to be in the same field as her. Wendong's predictions were correct. After they had walked in the mountain for only around an hour or so, they saw another mountain road in front of them. This road was obviously more popular than the road where they got off. At least they could see a car coming every so often. Wendong and Emo didn't wait long before stopping a bus heading towards Xiangshan Valley. Xiangshan Valley was China's famous tourist spot. Its fame was equal with the 5U Mountains. However, due to tourists going missing each year and the high rate of accidents on the mountain roads, its popularity was far lesser than the 5 Great U Mountains and some other famous mountains. As soon as Emo arrived at the Xiangshan Valley, he immediately felt that the spirit chi here was much greater than in Ninghai. If this place weren't too close to Ninghai, he even would have wanted to stay here and cultivate. The bus stopped at a parking place halfway up the mountain. Wendong told him to wait here while she got the stuff, and Emo didn't wait long before Wendong drove a car over. "I have the thing. Get in the car. Let's go." Wendong stopped the car in front of Emo and said casually. Although Emo's spirit sense could only reach out to 5 or 6 meters, it was enough to check this car. He scanned with his spirit sense and didn't find anything wrong with it, except for 2 extra cases on the back seat. Emo opened the door and sat in the back seat while his spirit sense scanned the box. One of them had an assault rifle. Emo didn't have a good understanding of guns and didn't know what model gun this was, but it looked a bit like the AK series. The other box had a stack of information and a very strange model. Wendong was very happy with Emo sitting at the back without question. However, she was also wondering if Emo's attitude was because he was usually this bold, or if he had simply not seen enough of the world. If it was that he hadn't experienced enough, then what would happen if he made some embarrassing moves? Thinking about this, Wendong said, "Emo, later when we go in, if there are people staring at us on the side, you don't need to worry. You just need to listen to my instructions and give them the case." "I know." Emo thought that they were probably exchanging the box with that model and a stack of information. Since Wendong was so calm, it meant that there was no danger. Besides, even if there were, he, Emo, wouldn't be scared, and after this deal, he could cultivate feeling relieved. Chapter 41. I should believe him. Chapter 41. I should believe him. Ninghai. 2 days passed really quickly. Although Ning Qingxue stood at the front door every day gazing her eyes out, Not even a shadow came, much less Yimo. 2 days later, Ning Qingxue finally understood that Yimo was gone and left without a sound. He didn't even tell her, or take his own things away. If it wasn't an urgent issue, then she really wasn't anything in his eyes. Perhaps in Yimo's eyes, she was just a disrespectful, heartless, and self-centered person. Qingxue, 2 days' time is up. Your parents have already told me that they were coming, but I told them that we will be meeting them at your state. Li Mumei looked at the soulless Ning Qingxue and reminded once again. Ning Qingxue's behavior these 2 days were very abnormal, as though she had lost her soul. She seemed to really care if Yimo came back or not. Even though Li Mumei didn't know what happened exactly, she knew there was something going on between Ning Qingxue and Yimo that she didn't know. But if someone were to say Ning Qingxue was attracted to Yimo, she would never believe it. Has it been 2 days already? Ning Qingxue answered subconsciously as her mind wandered in thought. Half a moment later, Ning Qingxue said once again, Mumei, I want to buy this place. Yes, buy this place, no matter how much it costs. Qingxue, what's wrong with you? Li Mumei felt that Ning Qingxue's actions were too casual. Even if the owner sold this place, who would live here? Mumei, buy this place, and tell the owner not to move the flower pots. Ning Qingxue had made up her mind. Why? Qingxue, even if you want to buy this place, you must have a good reason. Besides, your parents would want to know too, Li Mumei asked in confusion. No reason, Mumei. I just feel that I have lost something here. Perhaps I have a chance to find it if I buy this place. Yet if I don't, I might never have the chance to find it in my entire life. Mumei, I have made up my mind. If my dad doesn't agree, I will talk to him myself. Ning Qingxue's voice was very soft, as if coming from the border of heaven. Look, that pretty lady who came for Yim last time came again. Yimo's a really lucky guy. He actually knows beautiful women of this caliber, and yet doesn't come to class, making the girls unable to find him. Amazing. I've only seen him 2 or 3 times ever since school begun. Oomph. There were discussions everywhere inside the classroom, and that last humph was made by Yin Yin, who felt annoyed by this beautiful girl who was countless times prettier than her. Furthermore, she had even embarrassed herself last time. Su Jingwen had been to Ninghai University many times, but just couldn't find Yimo. She was aware that Li Mumei knew where Yimo lived, but she didn't want for the fact that she was looking for Yimo to be known. As for her mindset, Su Jingwen understood it. She was looking for Yimo because she felt very comfortable and had a joyful mood every time she was with him. Moreover, she didn't feel any pressure in his presence at all. Ever since Yimo danced with her that night on her birthday, Su Jingwen had never been able to find him. Today was already the 3rd time Su Jingwen came looking for him, so this time, she decided to ask his classmates if she didn't find him. Just when Su Jingwen made up her mind, she saw a cold-looking young, yet mature woman coming in, and Su Jingwen immediately recognized who this woman was. She was the teacher she saw last time when she left with Yimo. Immediately, she walked up excitedly and asked, Teacher, hello, do you know where Yimo had been these few days? Yimo? I don't know someone so shameless. The woman turned and left after having said that sentence. This woman was, of course, Yun Bing, and right now, the person she hated the most was Yimo. If Yimo appeared in front of her again, she wasn't even sure if she wouldn't immediately throw the books in her hand at him. Today, there was actually someone asking where Yimo went, and she recognized this pretty lady from last time. There was something she was absolutely sure about. Someone who was friends with Yimo definitely wouldn't be a good person. Su Jingwen stared at the teacher strutting off in shock and thought, did all the teachers in the university have such low moral standards? She said that she didn't know him, yet she also called him a shameless person. What would Yimo do to that woman for her to react like that? Even if other people didn't know Yimo's situation, how could she not know? He was the person kicked out of the Beijing family and was naturally that. What else could it be for a woman to hate a man for? Yimo couldn't do that at all. What right did this woman have to hate Yimo? Immediately, Yun Bing's image in Su Jingwen's heart fell by a mile. Sister Jingwen, why are you here? Su Mei's voice sounded. Oh, Su Mei, who is that teacher in front? Why are her moral standards so low? I asked her a question, and yet she actually swore. Su Jingwen pointed at Yun Bing, who only had their back to them. Su Mei looked and said intrigued. She's the English teacher, Yun Bing. Although she is a bit cold, she isn't someone with low moral standards. What's wrong? Did she say something just then? No. When I asked why Yimo wasn't here and where he went, she actually called him a shameless person. Really, what sort of teacher is she? Su Jingwen was obviously not happy about Yun Bing addressing Yimo like that. Yimo? Oh, no wonder. It's because Yimo harassed her before. I saw it with my own eyes. That day, Yimo probably harassed the teacher because of something. So Ms. Yun was going to hit him, but Yimo grabbed her by the wrist. Eventually, Ms. Yun called him a shameless person. Sister Jingwen, don't do anything with that Yimo anymore. He's a shameless person and probably got to know you for your money. Sume didn't have any good impressions of Yimo and fabricated more negative things about Yimo, making him seem completely worthless. Su Jingwen listened to Su Mei's words confused, and after a long while, she frowned her eyebrows and said, Yimo isn't such a person. I believe my first impressions, and I've seen him quite a few times. He didn't seem like that kind of person at all. Su Mei, didn't you see it wrong? I think you shouldn't be so judgmental sometimes. What? Sister Jingwen, how could I see it wrongly? That day, in the forest by the lake, I saw with my own eyes the interaction between them. And, even if I did see wrongly, was the teacher swearing at Yimo also false then? Su Mei hurriedly said. Actually, when Su Jingwen asked, she knew her question was problematic. If Su Mei saw it wrongly, why did that woman swear at Yimo without reason? Were her feelings really wrong? However, Yimo didn't give her a bad impression. Although he wasn't well off, he always had an equal attitude towards her. What was going on here? You know someone's face, but you don't know their heart. Was Yimo really that type of person? Could it be possible that he simply hid very deeply? Or was it that he had hidden intentions when he made contact with her? Yet, in the grace of heavens, it had been her looking for Yimo right at the start. He never came looking for her once. It was the same even when he knew her number. She touched the bracelet on her wrist. Su Jingwen's heart was a bit messy. It wasn't because she had feelings for Yimo. It was that she never had a friend of the opposite sex in the same age group who she could get along well with. Her good impression for Yimo appeared without her realizing. However, now she discovered that other people's opinions of him were so different to hers that she felt her heart was blocked. Besides, she saw some things with her own eyes. No, she thought, I need to go where he lives and see for myself. Li Mumei knows, so I'll go ask her first. I don't believe Yimo is such a person, and they must have misunderstood him. I should believe him. Chapter 42. 3 Beads. Chapter 42. 3 beads before Su Jingwen could ask Li Mumei, another woman called her. This woman was none other than Ning Qingxue, who married Yimo. Of course, Su Jingwen knew why Ning Qingxue was married to Yimo. However, her woman's intuition told her that Ning Qingxue didn't feel that great toward her. So why would Ning Qingxue be the first to call her? When Su Jingwen arrived at a cafeteria, Ning Qingxue was already there and had been for a long time. As she saw Su Jingwen coming in, Ning Qingxue hurriedly stood up. Qingxue, you were looking for me? Su Jingwen saw Ning Qingxue and asked. Yes, Jingwen, please sit. Do you want to drink anything? Ning Qingxue asked casually. I don't like coffee. I'll have some juice instead. Just when Su Jingwen finished her sentence, she realized that there was also a cup of juice in front of Ning Qingxue. The two were drinking juice in a cafeteria. This really was quite ridiculous. Qingxue, are you guys living all right? Su Jingwen originally wanted to ask how Yimo was doing, but when the words got to her mouth, it became you guys. Oh, good. Ning Qingxue drank a sip of juice and didn't know how to reply. After a while, she calmed down and said, Jingwen, there's actually something that I want you to help me with. It's just that. After a long while, Ning Qingxue still hadn't been able to articulate her intentions. It was as though it was embarrassing to say. Qingxue, if there's something, just be straightforward. Mumei is my good friend, while she is your cousin and, although we weren't familiar before, I think we'll be familiar later on. Su Jingwen's meaning was clear. We aren't strangers anymore. What can't you say? Okay, I'll be straightforward then. Could you tell me some things about Yimo? And Ning Qingxue said half her sentence, but wasn't able to say the other half. Su Jingwen suddenly smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, so this was actually something like that. I got to know Yimo in a very accidental way. He was taken to the police station, and I went there to get him out. The reason I did it was because, from a distance, he looked like someone familiar. Yet, when I saw him in person, I realized that he wasn't the one I was looking for. Afterward, we ate together and later, I invited him to my birthday dinner." Su Jingwen didn't say that she had thought that Yimo was that master who sold her the charms. After all, Ning Qingxue and Li Mumei appeared not to be superstitious. Why would she bother saying that? Ning Qingxue didn't think that Yimo actually went to the police station. She didn't know for what reason, but she didn't ask and continued. "Jingwen, last time when Yimo went to your birthday party, he gave you a bracelet. If you didn't like it, I thought that maybe." Ning Qingxue was too embarrassed to say that she wanted Su Jingwen to give her the bracelet. After all, Yimo gave this to Su Jingwen, and if she hadn't heard from Li Mumei that Yimo had only seen Su Jingwen a few times, she would ask Su Jingwen for it no matter how much she wanted it. And now, Su Jingwen also admitted that she and Yimo weren't really close. Thus, Ning Qingxue tried to ask, but when the words reached her mouth, she still couldn't say it. Although Ning Qingxue didn't say it out loud, Su Jingwen understood what she meant. Ning Qingxue probably wanted her bracelet. Su Jingwen began to wonder, does she really have feelings for Yimo? No, even if there were feelings, if Yimo could give this to me, then, of course, he could make one for Ning Qingxue. So why does she still want this bracelet? She honestly thought that Yimo's bracelet was really crude-looking. Yet the reason she liked it was because she felt that the friendship she had with Yimo was pure. Yimo was a friend that made her feel very peaceful and, although they hadn't seen each other much, it never had anything else involved. However, earlier when she heard Su Mei and saw Yun Bing's attitude towards Yimo, she started to feel confused. At this point, she wasn't sure what sort of a person Yimo was. Although she believed in Yimo, there was still some doubt in the depth of her heart. Is Yimo okay? Su Jingwen didn't reply to Ning Qingxue and instead asked something completely irrelevant. Ning Qingxue originally thought that Su Jingwen was going to say that she would go back and look for the bracelet, or say that she didn't know where she put it since Ning Qingxue didn't believe that Su Jingwen would wear the crude bracelet Yimo gave her. In her eyes, that bracelet shouldn't mean much to Su Jingwen. Therefore, she asked for it. However, she didn't expect Su Jingwen to ask about Yimo, which took her by surprise. Yimo left, and probably even left Ninghai by now. I don't know where he went, and I haven't seen him for a few days. Tonight, I will also leave Ninghai for you stay with Mumei. Ning Qingxue still reacted quickly and told Su Jingwen that she was leaving Ninghai soon. Yimo had already left? He still hasn't graduated from Ninghai University, though. Su Jingwen said in surprise. But soon, she remembered what Su Mei told her about Yimo at Ninghai University, that even if he finished all the course, he still probably couldn't graduate. Su Jingwen suddenly smiled and didn't wait for Ning Qingxue's reply. Instead, she just said, "That bracelet is actually not bad. I quite like it. Since you are already his wife, wouldn't he agree to make you one if you ask him for it? Tell me why you want that bracelet, and perhaps I could give you half." Ning Qingxue immediately realized that Su Jingwen was intentionally doing this, but she still replied, "You know that I married Yimo as a cover-up, it's just that now, I don't need it anymore. Yimo left, and didn't leave anything to me. And I feel I owe him. So, one reason that Ning Qingxue wanted the bracelet was that she was suddenly envious of Su Jingwen's bracelet that Yimo gave her. Since Su Jingwen was so rich, she probably wouldn't like something so crude and probably even lost it somewhere. Since Su Jingwen didn't like it, then it shouldn't even matter if she took it back. However, she hit a key thing. Although Yimo didn't leave anything to her, he was gone too quickly and even left behind his little medical case. However, she wasn't going to say this as that medical case had already become something private to her. "The bracelet is on my hands." Su Jingwen took off the bracelet as she spoke. The reason she thought Ning Qingxue felt guilty towards Emo was because she used him. In fact, Ning Qingxue was also pitiful, as it seemed that Emo was infuriated with her since he left without even notifying her. Ning Qingxue was shocked. She didn't think that Su Jingwen would actually wear on her wrist the bracelet Emo gave her. This took her by surprise. What did this mean? It implied that Su Jingwen really liked this bracelet, and things weren't as she thought they were. Suddenly, an unknown feeling gushed in Ning Qingxue's heart, a feeling that she didn't even understand. All right, I'll give you 3 beads. These were all made by Emo himself. You can link them with string yourself. As Su Jingwen spoke, she opened the bracelet and took off 3 beads and gave them to Ning Qingxue. If it would have happened in the morning before she had heard Yunbing swearing at Emo and Su Mei's words to her, perhaps she wouldn't be willing to give 3 beads to Ning Qingxue. But after these 2 events, she had a feeling that the beads in her hands didn't seem as important as before. Now that Ning Qingxue asked for it, she actually gave 3 to her. As for why keeping the other 3, perhaps it was in memory of that pure friendship. After she got back, maybe she would store the 3 remaining beads away and not wear it on her hands anymore. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.